we talking about today?
So today, we've been taking turns rotating who brings up a topic. So this came across my news feed last week, and it was this attorney general in New York has launched a lawsuit to essentially start to eliminate the NRA.
Because they're in New York, like that's where they're based.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when this came across, I thought, well, this seems like just kind of a political move to kind of start eroding at some of the Republican talking points going into the election. But at the same time, maybe there's some credibility to this claim. So I really thought it'd be a fun thing to talk about with you guys, because not only do we have this element of how does this play into the election, but it also relates to kind of our own stances on gun ownership, gun laws, gun regulations. And Sanan, I know you mentioned there were some interesting ties to San Diego and all of this. Mm-hmm. So, so today's podcast, what I was really hoping to explore was why are guns so politically charged? Because I find it interesting that actually tends to go either Democrat or Republican. To me, it doesn't seem like it should be tied to either party.
Do you own a gun?
I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I am a Democrat, right? But I do quite enjoy guns. Mm-hmm. Going out to the shooting range or taking them out to the desert, things like that. But I don't know why it's like a Democrat thing or a Republican thing.
I'm going to close that door.
I don't know why it's a Democrat or a Republican thing either. I mean, it's kind of strange how if you're a gun owner, you're automatically presumed to be a Republican. If you're not a gun owner and you're not a fan of guns, you're automatically presumed to be a Democrat.
Yeah, and I find that so interesting. And then I don't really know, I don't know too many Republicans or Democrats, and I haven't asked around to be like, well, are you a Democrat? Do you own a gun? Are you Republican? So the people that I do know that own guns are Republicans. So Scott, do you own a gun?
I've been known one or two in my day.
Yes.
And then do you consider yourself Democrat or Republican?
Absolutely not.
Independent?
Absolutely not. I'm independent. I'm a registered libertarian, but I don't necessarily identify with libertarian wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I consider myself to be a fiscally conservative individual, but a liberal social individual.
So what we're talking about today is NRA.
NRA.
And then we're going to explore why are guns so polarizing.
Yeah, I think that's a fun topic.
And that comes down to the Second Amendment, because you can't talk about the NRA and gun ownership without talking about the Second Amendment and what that means to people, and then what civil liberties mean to people as well.
So I think talking about people's civil liberties, I think we should look at the NRA's mission statement.
Okay, what is it?
Either of you have that?
No, tell me more about the NRA. I know some stuff about the NRA, but you are also an NRA member, right?
No,
you're not. You're not.
Not
an
NRA.
Oh, okay.
No.
Is there a membership due to be an NRA member?
Yes.
I don't know how it goes, but I remember when I was little, probably around 10, maybe 12, right around the time where you're supposedly becoming a man, 10 or 12, they sent some packaging to me specifically that offered me to become a lifelong member. And I don't remember exactly what that was. I mean, this was years and years and years ago. And I'm sure you guys equally had something sent to your house. Maybe your parents never gave it to you.
Probably not.
But it was a great marketing plan by the NRA to get male interest. I mean, Gillette did the same thing with razors, right? You guys got those free razors when you were young.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
NRA did the same thing for men, for males. So, but here's the NRA mission statement. To protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, especially with reference to the inalienable right to an individual American citizen guaranteed by such Constitution to acquire, possess, collect, exhibit, transport, carry, transfer ownership of, and enjoy the right to use arms.
Yeah.
That's their mission statement.
They also call themselves the oldest civil rights group in the United States.
So the NRA was formed in 1871.
Yeah.
So that very likely could be.
Yeah,
I haven't fact checked that.
Yeah, no, that's what they say about themselves.
Okay.
So
I really like that mission statement though. Like that, I 100% personally agree with that. But do you guys agree with that mission statement? Like, do you think we should defend that constitutional right?
I think it's a pretty easy thing to defend. Is defending someone's right as stated in the Constitution. It's just how do you defend those rights is a huge, bigger topic, and that's something that
I think that breaking it apart, you can get into some trouble with it. I mean, I think that it's important to protect the Second Amendment, but I think that it's also important that there's limitations to it. And right now, we're seeing this movement of smart laws, right? What are these called? They're calling them common sense laws, common sense gun laws.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's appropriate for somebody to go buy a bazooka if that even exists. We don't need to have howitzers running around on the street.
Well, let's get into the Second Amendment issue for now. For the NRA, when you think of an NRA member, what kind of person comes to mind? And you can give me multiple kinds of person, but what's your first impression of what kind of person comes to mind demographically?
I think a hunter. That's what comes to my mind, because most of the NRA members that I know and from growing up with, they were all hunters, Midwestern hunters. They weren't pound your chest Republicans. They weren't pound your chest Democrats. They were just basically trying to go out, hunt, have some sportsmanship with it. Preserve the right, Second Amendment right, have a good gun collection, have the right tool for whatever kind of animal that you're actually going out to hunt. That's what I see.
That was my first thought too, is hunters, because the people that I do know that own guns, they all own them for hunting purposes.
Now, my image of an NRA member has not changed ground level, but my image of an NRA member sitting at the top of the company, sitting at the top of the food chain, has changed dramatically.
What do you mean?
Over the last couple years.
Okay, tell me about that.
These are corporate sharks exploiting the system.
What do you mean?
That's what they are. These are your white collar. We're gonna fuck over whoever we can and put as much money in our coffers as we possibly can fill.
Okay.
That's what I see right now. I see it very similar to the Trump family.
Okay. Okay. Well, they have ties to the Trump administration.
Absolutely.
Strong ties.
Absolutely.
Strong ties. In fact, Trump really rallied that base up.
2016, the NRA donated $70 million plus to their campaign, to Trump's campaign. Wow. This year already, we're looking at $31 million just to Trump.
Wow.
Again, for re-election.
Whoa.
And they paid him back in votes too?
I'm sure.
He came on to the show. He came on to the convention. He spoke.
Yeah, the NRA lists who's the most positive gun healthy advocate to vote for.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's Republicans, of course. But with that said, the NRA has openly admitted voting for Trump is going to save your gun laws. Your gun rights.
And then also a vote for Biden is going to take away your guns.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then I want to get into the rhetoric that they have done as well, because that's important to talk about with the NRA. I admittedly, I think I'm the most ignorant out of the three of you when it comes to guns. Like, one of the first guns I shot was with you, Scott. How long ago was that?
Oh man, maybe 2 years ago.
2 years ago at Fairview, we shot some cans and stuff.
No, we're on the same level there. Like the first time I ever shot a real gun was probably 3 or 4 years ago with my friend Trevor.
Okay.
And we took some discs out to the desert.
So when did you shoot your first fake gun?
Well, like a BB gun or a pellet gun.
Gotcha. Okay.
I had some of those growing up.
And I grew up in a very liberal household. And so there's my ignorance there. But my views on the Second Amendment, at least just to color the foundation immediately, is that those are rights that should be protected. It's just a matter of how, right? And that's where I think that's where people start disagreeing. I think most people recognize that people's rights should be protected, and I think if you disagree with that, that's kind of a weird non-American thing to do. I think where people disagree is how you go about protecting and exercising your rights. And I think that a lot of people, when they think of an NRA member, they think of a white male, maybe with a mustache, right?
Maybe some really cool sunglasses.
Wearing a
Yeah.
Stetson cowboy hat.
Yeah, and typically Republican, right? Like there's some stereotypes there, and then if you think of like a woman that's in the NRA, also white, I think most people assume that the NRA is mostly white, and although there is a large minority of like ethnic minority that is part of the NRA, but I think most people, especially on the left, consider a single demographic when they think of the NRA. But they're 5 million people. That's a diverse group of people.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. You might know the rapper from Georgia. He's on Bill Maher quite often, who's an NRA member and advocate of gun
Killer
rights.
Mike.
Killer Mike. Yeah, Killer Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember a segment that they had. Anyway, different tangent.
Yeah. Killer Mike is an advocate for gun rights.
Left-leaning guy,
yeah,
advocate for gun rights.
Yeah.
Bill Maher himself, left-leaning guy, advocate for gun rights.
Right. And so what do you guys know about the NRA?
Well, I know. So like the far extreme example of that individual is what's that crazy Ted Nugent?
Mm-hmm.
Ted Nugent.
So you do have an impression of like what an NRA member looks like, and it's Ted Nugent
in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The
He's
NRA is supposed to lobby and supposed to campaign against any legislation that's proposed to infringe on the Second Amendment. Right.
Okay.
Now, are they doing a good job at that? I think that they are.
Mm-hmm.
In general, they are.
Mm-hmm.
They lobbied against the carrying capacity of magazines here in California.
So what is that? What do you mean? What do you mean carrying capacity?
So a magazine holds rounds that you fire, obviously, your bullets. California, I want to say in 1994.
Date doesn't matter.
96, maybe.
At some point.
At some point, they created a law that restricted high capacity magazine rounds. So 10 right now is the limit in California for any type of pistol or rifle, excluding police officers and military.
Wait, did you say like that's the most you can purchase?
That's the most that a magazine can hold.
Can hold.
In,
okay, gotcha.
In capacity.
Why does that matter?
So, I guess in California's eyes, exceeding 10 has a higher risk of mass murder. So
interesting. And what's the normal capacity?
I wouldn't say that there is a normal capacity. I think that like pistols can range from 6 rounds to 24 rounds with just a standard stock magazine issued by the manufacturer. So
yeah. And if it's in a hunting context, right? Like when do you need more than 10 shots at once?
I guess in a hunting context, I mean,
how many things
do you want more than 10 if you're going to go hunting for a bear if you have small caliber by chance and you don't have a larger caliber gun? Probably so. Not that you would do that. I think that's an inhumane way to kill a bear. But my point is, self-defense, let's say you're out in the woods, is 10 enough if you are in bear country? My opinion, fuck no.
For a bear, maybe not.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you got me, really considering owning a gun, and it'll happen at some point. I'm just too cheap to do it.
Sure.
Because they're expensive. Because I'm in bear country a lot, and I've run into animals and bears, and
and that's actually the reason why I picked up my first. Was because I'm in bear country and mountain lion country all the time.
Yeah. So you guys are interested in having firearms to protect yourselves from bears
and animals. Yeah.
I'm typically like more interested in having it for protection from people.
Well, look, I think that a lot of people own guns for different reasons: protection, sport, protection domestically, protect your family, protect your house from intruders, protect from crime. We look at it as protecting from wildlife in case we're in a precarious situation. There's, again, going back to sport, maybe even collectibles. There's people who are out there picking up Civil War guns, memorabilia from World War II.
Yeah.
Those types of people. They're not out there to use the weapon. They're out there to hold a piece of history.
So I think that's something interesting as regards to the NRA is that your motivations for membership and protecting your right to the desire to exercise your right to bear arms I want to get away from the language of protecting your right, because I think there's a very distinguished difference between protecting your rights and exercising your rights, and you go about those things differently. So in exercising your rights, people who want to exercise their rights have very different motivations for why they want to do that, and that's what makes it so interesting to have 5 million members. That's a very rainbow of people of why they are interested in ownership. Anything from the collector to the person like myself who just wants one or two things for personal defense, to the guy who's got like assault rifles. Well, you can't carry an assault rifle. Hunting rifles. You've got all sorts of like wacky things that you just take out to the range and just blast something for fun. Like you like a gun nut, not in the sense of like I'm crazy, but like gun nut is like I love this.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
I tell you, there is a sound that is unlike any other firing. An M16, an M14, something, an AR-15. There is a sound to that gas chamber release. I mean, it is incredible. You will not hear that sound anywhere else.
I haven't experienced that like click yet. Maybe I will someday. I'm open to it, but I recognize that there's a huge variation as to why people own guns and why people probably join the NRA.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of part of why I'm actually so surprised that this is so successfully used as a political tool, because I would really think that both sides, Democrats and Republicans, would kind of overall agree that like if you mass polled people and didn't just go to the extremes, they would overall agree that like some amount of restrictions on certain types of firearms seems to make sense.
Right.
So, and I think both parties agree there.
So back to the NRA. What do you know about the investigations into the NRA and like the fraud allegations?
So the interesting thing for me, as I kind of read a few different articles on it, was I also tried to read different sources, right? So I looked at like NPR, I looked at Fox News, and I was surprised for the most part they were all reporting on it very similarly. I didn't feel like anybody took a crazy spin on it, which was kind of refreshing. But really, when I think about it, what they're accusing the NRA of is a lot of what takes place in corporations across the country anyway, right? But the difference here is that it's not a corporation, it's a nonprofit.
So what do you mean stuff that goes on in corporations?
And what I'm talking about is you're doing kind of sweetheart deals with friends, you're organizing the board to make sure that you're, taking in as much take-home pay as you possibly can. You're kind of gaming certain expenses that you can write off to the organization. So what's been exposed and what the NRA is being accused of is just, over the top corporate expenses, private jets, vacation homes, things like that. And in the strictly corporate sphere, there's like a fairly decent argument that like, well, they're the like CEO of whatever, Philip Morris or something. They have to kind of run in certain circles for the better opportunities of networking and whatever for the organization, So there's almost like viable arguments on that side. But when you're in a
what
nonprofit,
do you mean because of corporate, you're saying when you're corporate, it could make sense. There's an argument for why you would spend $240,000 on suits because you're in the upper echelons of society and you need to present yourself as such.
I mean, I know it sounds like a crazy argument, and $240,000 seems extreme, and it is. But like, if you take it down to the smaller scale, like we have a small business and we want to take a client out to a nice dinner. You
got to spend money on dinner. You got to spend money on golf. You got to spend money on things.
We take them out to Morton's instead of the taco shop, Yeah. And so you just got to imagine though, like if you're mingling in those circles, where are you going to take the other CEO out to?
Sure. And so what's the problem with it being nonprofit then?
So if you're a nonprofit though, you have an obligation to ensure that the majority of your funds are being used to execute on that mission. So that mission that we started this conversation with is critical to the whole thing because, it's like, is it necessary to make, to buy $240,000 worth of suits to serve that mission.
Yeah.
Well, even in the nonprofit world, it's a little bit of there's plenty of room. Yeah. So whether they make any actual headway with this case, chances are they won't. Like, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's anything that wouldn't have enough gray area around it to be like, well, the guy's just running a big company.
So there was this.
I'm not saying I agree with it.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of painting this other picture, right?
You gonna say something, Scott?
I think you made a good point. I think that looking at the expenses, we need to go back and see if the expenses are really helping out the mission statement. And I think when we look at a lot of the activities that the NRA is being accused of, specifically Wayne, how do you say his last name?
LaPierre.
Wayne LaPierre. Yeah. A lot of the activities in his inner circle have participated in.
Yeah.
They failed dramatically on supporting that mission statement.
So I want to promote this podcast because they go into the intense amount of fraud essentially that has been happening at the NRA. And you're saying you don't know if this is going to be able to be used against them. I disagree. I think that there is enough evidence that is surmounting that they are going to have a really bad time.
I hope you're right. Like,
no.
I don't agree with this stuff at all. Like,
what do you mean?
Well, I hope you're right that they're going to have a really bad time.
Yeah.
Like I do not agree with these types of crazy expenses.
Give us some examples.
Yeah. So let me paint this picture. And again, this one podcast called Gangster Capitalism has an entire season, quote unquote season, they call it, of like 8 or 9 plus episodes on the fraud associated with the NRA. And they go into incredible detail, painting the backstory, the context, and then whittling it down step by step by step by step, the decades of fraud that has happened at this company. And when I say fraud, I'm talking about the overall duping of members getting their money and using it for illegitimate purposes, especially for a nonprofit. So if you're an NRA member and you're listening to this, don't take my word for it. Listen to this podcast. It's going to take you maybe a few hours. Take it on your drive to work. If you're exercising, if you're just sitting there looking for something, check out this podcast, Gangster Capitalism. We'll link it in the YouTube description because I think it's worth the promotion. So well done.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. I'd love
so let me just paint this picture that the NRA was associated with this media firm called Ackerman something else. It's called, like, it's short for AMC, not the AMC that does like movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Ackerman, and they would pay this person, this vendor, money to do media promotions, but they also relied on them for invoicing certain expenses, which includes a $6 million home in Texas for Wayne LaPierre and his wife, using member money.
Wow.
So the way that they would do this scheme, hold on, let me just share. So they hired the CFO. I don't have his name. Again, all of this information is in Gangster Capitalism. They hired the CFO, who they got a tip, was fired for embezzling over $1 million from his former company. And they hired this CFO years ago. So the CFO knows how to play the game, right? So you try to hide the money trail.
Did they get the tip after hiring the CFO or before hiring
during the process of getting him hired?
Oh, so like a background check came back and they're like, hey,
no,
dude stole from us.
They didn't do background checks.
So what you're insinuating...
And there's multiple people they don't do background checks on who have super shady histories. There's one guy who owned a company who got fired from the company that he founded because of these horrible practices, finds and does this other... and it's just like horrible, like...
Okay.
Continuous white-collar crime.
So just quickly, though, so you're saying there's a good chance, that they knew he was like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they wanted him as CFO.
Bingo.
Okay.
There's a strong... These people are all running similar ethos. And that's why they're like gravitating towards each other. You tend to start gravitating around people who have similar ethos.
Sure. So
true. So the CFO is helping funnel this. So essentially the way it works, that way you're not taking money that's in the NRA coffers and spending it directly on something. You're sending it to this vendor who then invoices you, right? Mm-hmm. And Wayne LaPierre has also stated that he had no idea these transactions were happening. And then the employees of Ackerman are like, no, we are all about our clients. So if our clients direct us to do something, they are well aware of what's being done with their money, right? And it's all got the direction of Wayne LaPierre. And this, the invoice schemes include things like the $6 million for a home, $240,000 for suits. After Sandy Hook, they took a $70,000 vacation to the Caribbean, Wayne LaPierre and his wife. There was like $5,500 a month spent for a 20-something-year-old intern that Wayne LaPierre was mentoring.
That's a nice mentorship.
That's a nice mentorship program. I heard about those mentorship
she
programs.
Probably benefited great.
Yeah. It's weird. They just don't have them for men. Right? Like young men.
Sign me up.
Right? So there's like...
It needs a little bit more than $55,000.
$5,500.
Oh, $5,500.
Yeah.
I need a little bit more than $5,500.
Yeah. Right. So, young men, it's not a young men program. It's a young female sponsorship to make sure that the, NRA gets more women. I think that's what the purpose of the program was for. And the internships, those housing is tough. You don't want to put an intern in a rough income part of Chicago. You want to make sure that they're set. So $5,500 is just, basic coverages. So you have these invoice schemes. Board members were getting paid off. So the board members help keep Wayne LaPierre in power.
Sure.
And so they're getting paid off because if they're comfy and getting paid in checks, they're not going to say anything. And this is all this money is 100% member donated funds. They've had multi-million-dollar donations from millionaires pull out after they realized that their funds weren't used appropriately. So you had multi-millionaires coming out against the NRA, not against the NRA, against Wayne LaPierre, who is the head honcho. He's the gangster of this whole thing. Another scheme that they would do. So each state has like an assembly person who helps run all like the little chapters. Then you have your little divisions and organizations.
Sure. And
he had a specific person in California. They called him Mr. Payne, getting paid $80,000 as a fixer. So this fixer would help get certain board seats at the local level elected, making sure that you supported these members because those members would help keep Wayne LaPierre in power. So if he was doing that for California, you imagine he's probably doing that for other states as well. It just so happened that people from California spoke out to this podcast and let them know, hey, this happened. There was a tip that was provided. So there is definitely going to be some legitimate fraud that is happening because they're not operating like a nonprofit. It doesn't sound very nonprofitly. It
sounds like the best soap opera or mystery novel ever.
So this podcast paints it so well. Can I say one more thing? One more thing on it? So this Ackerman, right? Their relationship sours after they go to an attorney by the name, I think his name is Bill Brewer. I know the last name's Brewer. I think it's like Bill Brewer. Uh-huh. And Brewer was saying, well, you need to do a full audit of all your expenses. And they do all these audits and then they rank order like, oh, what are the threats? And the CFO was labeled as like a potential liability because obviously he's helping funnel all these transactions. And so then Brewer starts looking into the Ackerman invoices and starts raising some questions and starts demanding Ackerman turn over all these documents. And then Ackerman's like starts resisting. And they're like, well, why are you resisting? Blah, blah, blah. So they start infighting. Well, it turns out Ackerman's, one of the executive's daughters is married to Bill Brewer.
That's perfect.
Like, so if you want to hear the rest of this, they can paint this way better than I can. It is a wild story. You were going to say, Scott?
I guess my question to you guys is, what is Attorney General James's investigation and her end that she wants to complete? Does she want to dissolve the NRA?
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume that's like what she's doing because that's what the filing was. But, it's like anything, you kind of you swing for the fences,
swing high,
and then, you know, hopefully you just make some ground on it, right? So, like, I mean, who knows where the thing actually goes, but it sounds like there's plenty of meat to chew on in there.
There's going to be a lot they're going to be able to rip into these guys.
I hope that becomes like an ongoing like news saga, and it doesn't just kind of blow through. Like, I hope that one sticks with us for a minute, because that sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah.
My guess is the NRA is going to pay big media to keep that away.
My guess is you're right. Like, we might not hear a lot about it. Like, since it came out a week ago, I haven't heard much.
Unfortunately, my prediction is that I think they are pissing off enough Republicans who are recognizing that this is a added threat to the Second Amendment from their standpoint, and that it is better to have the NRA under better leadership. So I think they're going to turn against Wayne LaPierre.
That's what I think.
Big time.
Personally, that's what I think should happen.
Yeah, they're going to turn on the board.
Reorganization, restructure of leadership, because to dismantle something that represents 5 million people, what's going to happen to those 5 million people who now want representation, if they do?
Well, there's other gun rights groups, but none as well known as the NRA. And I didn't get into their relationships with gun manufacturers. Is something that I wanted to get into, but I just didn't have the time to like look into it. But the National Rifle Association, keyword national, is involved and has a global impact. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think it gets a little scary, is these deals with the gun manufacturers they do, allowing the importation and exportation of guns into other countries. And there's been other countries, I think it was New Zealand, who was like, why is the NRA putting their nose in New Zealand business when it comes to guns? You know what I'm saying? And because they had the assault weapon ban after the shooting there.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, right? Like, if it's really, you know, set up to protect this Second Amendment right for Americans, why is it involved in these dealings with other countries?
Which I think there was I can't remember if it was the guy who did the shooting in New Zealand. Somebody like close there was like really upset about New Zealand violating their Second Amendment rights. New Zealand does not have a Second Amendment relating to the right to bear.
It's exclusive. It's pretty much exclusive to the U.S. I mean,
the rhetoric's powerful, though.
That's
yeah,
it's incredible. A lot of people wish that they did, though.
Yeah,
but you know, to your question though, like it probably isn't like I don't think there's any way, you know, they're going to be able to take down the NRA. Like it's not going to happen. You know,
there was also some other scandals like and so I want to jump into the ethics of the NRA, because I think that's a more like let the investigative journalism be done by the journalists. We can talk more about like ethical issues and the rhetoric.
Yeah.
But one of the gray areas of like ethics and the fraud was that the NRA also had this insurance program that they tried to come out with called Carry Guard. Have you guys heard of this?
I like the sound of it.
This is another way that they got in trouble, because it was an insurance program, and they got in trouble for trying to peddle insurance without an insurance license. So that's the way the regulators got tipped off in like 2017 that some irregularities were happening. So they start doing these things. And Carry Guard was being, I think it was like Locked In, which is an insurance broker, got in like trouble and paid like $7 million and like some fines or something like that. But Carry Guard, and this is where we get into the issues with the NRA, and I think this is why they've put a huge target on their back. It's A, their ethics, and B, and ethics meaning not the members, but the leadership and their programs that they execute. Their ethics and the rhetoric that they have been promoting over the last many, many years.
And then the political slant, right? And then you tie that in with everything that's happening with the BLM movement right now. I mean, you couldn't find a more hot topic item. Because like they probably could have launched this thing at any point in the last like decade. Like none of these things are new, right?
What things?
Well, all of these issues that you're bringing up, this money laundering that they're doing, the buying the homes, this isn't new stuff. Like it's all been happening for ages.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a bit of a calculation to when this is going to arrive.
Yeah, I mean, and so they launched it with like BLM really hot. We've got the election coming up. They've timed it to try to be as effective as possible.
I think they've timed it, but I also think that the NRA has been and I want to talk about it with their rhetoric, is that this is my theory, that because of the type of rhetoric that they have been building and stoking within their members, I think that they have created enemies by using a narrative of we have to defend, fight, protect. And I want to talk about that, but I want to talk about this Carry Guard program because I want to hear what you guys think about
I want to talk about Carry Guard. Before we get into Carry Guard, I also want to talk about, you guys remember that very recently the Trump ad that showed like the old woman in her house?
Yeah, in Portland or Seattle?
Yeah.
You didn't see this?
Oh,
no. Go tell it. I thought I shared it with you guys.
Yeah. I think you showed it to me.
Oh God, I should have just.
Maybe it was just me.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just me. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, can we jump into this just really quick?
Yeah. Go
before
for it.
We go into Carry Guard. So I mean, this is incredible, and I think this is part of the statement, the conversation that's happening right now. So it's basically this video, and I'm gonna butcher it completely.
No, why don't I just put it on? Why don't you tell Scott stuff, and I'll put it on the TV.
Yeah. So basically, what it is, it's like this old woman in her home. And there's like a narration, whatever. And like, while the narration's going on, it's like, the Democrats want to take away your right to own guns, especially Joe Biden. And like, then they show this like old woman, like turning on the TV. And then there's like this guy with a mask on who's like creeping around her house. Meanwhile, and it just keeps going. And they're like, and they also want to defund the police. And like, if there isn't a police force, who's going to protect your loved ones? And she's like clicking the TV as the guy's like jimming open the door, you know.
You're being socialized. You encounter the tyranny of the state.
Little Jordan Peterson action.
Yeah.
I know me Peterson.
Yeah.
That's great. But anyway, so like that, that commercial is all around like security, gun rights, things like that. And that's his political ad. So like, of course, like where would you go if you're the opposing party? Like they're just diving in to try to attack the NRA, right? But this is kind of this weird division that's happening in any attempt, instead of an attempt for any kind of unification. Like, so what do? They go on the offensive to like attack the NRA. So he's launching all these ads that are like, the Democrats are trying to like remove police and your firearms and everything that's keeping you safe. And then the Democrats kind of, in my mind, like fall right into it with this. And like, but yeah, there's obvious egregious issues. But that's just going to infuriate the base. That's just more ammo, to use the parlance.
Yeah, let's check this out.
Oh yeah, this is amazing.
Seattle's pledge to defund its police department by 50%, even including a proposal to remove 911 dispatchers from police control.
Joe Biden said he's absolutely on board with defunding the police. Listen closely.
Yes, absolutely.
Hello, you've reached 911. I'm sorry that there is no one here to answer your emergency call, but leave a message and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Crime will rise significantly.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
You won't be safe in Joe Biden's America.
Like that's a pretty serious like fear campaign.
Dude, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm scared just watching it.
Yeah.
It feeds so many people.
Yeah.
I mean,
it really does.
I have family that will watch that and relate to that type of fear.
Yep.
Well, and that's why I'm bringing up this like NRA thing just feeds into that. It just stokes that fire.
Yep. We're going to talk about that, the rhetoric, because it is so important. I think, the gangster capitalism thing was great. It kind of provided the context for the building fraud and the surmounting kind of angst against the NRA. But I think one of the big pieces that we cannot ignore about the surmounting anger towards the NRA is not just their stance and the way that they've been brought into the gun debates as the school shootings have happened, but it's really the rhetoric that they use to gain membership, to stoke their membership, the speakers that they have on. And there's some very clear themes that they hit every single time when they're doing speeches, and I'll go into that. But I want to talk about the ethics a little bit first. Carry Guard.
Let's get back to
Carry Guard. Carry Guard is an insurance program. So there's a educational component. Let's say you buy this Carry Guard insurance program. You get $150,000 criminal defense reimbursement and $1 million civil liability protection if you kill someone with your gun. So they tried to create an insurance
So this is
for murder.
Get out of jail. But Is it self-defense?
That's what they're saying. It's for the self-defense type of member. Yeah. However, they were a big part of the stand your ground laws. Like they helped cultivate that, which became national attention with George Zimmerman.
Castle Doctrine.
Bingo. You mentioned the story about a guy in a video clip who shot some protesters.
Yeah, last podcast.
Can you tell me what was that again? It was like
there
was like people like they showed a video clip of a guy getting attacked.
Okay, so let me start with how I found this video. It was floating around as a clip from my more conservative group of friends on social media. It showed a Caucasian-looking man being attacked by 3 or 4 dark individuals.
Okay.
Black, brown people.
Minoritized.
Minoritized.
I think that's from South Park.
It showed this guy clearly outnumbered, and he reached into his waistband and he pulled out a pistol and he fired. He got one fell, and he got maybe another.
Yeah.
But he fired upon a group of people charging him to attack him.
And with incredible skill.
I don't know about incredible skill.
Okay,
I'm sure there's some people that could probably do a little bit better than that guy.
Okay, for me, I was like, dang, that guy had some moves. I saw the video, like I saw that.
Yeah.
That section of the
clip. So that's how I found the clip. It was floating around from my conservative friends who were supporting gun advocacy. I did a little bit of research, found the whole clip. Turns out that guy approached a group of minority individuals who were tearing down a statue.
Yeah.
So he is a minority in this populace. He's a white guy going after a group of black people trying to pull down a statue. He pushes down somebody, a female at that. Assaulting somebody. Yeah, he accosted a woman doing this, or who was at least part of the group that was doing this, and the group turned on him. So he went looking for a fight, armed, to go and prevent what?
And
to prevent a statue
ground.
And stand ground for a statue being demolished or a statue being removed from its pedestal. But he went in not carrying or not having a license to carry one. Don't know if the gun.
No way,
don't know if the gun was actually legally possessed or not. I mean,
so he was not.
Could have been his gun. It could not have been his gun. I don't know. But point is, he did not have a concealed carry permit, and the gun was concealed as he was carrying.
And he was not insured by Carry Guard.
And I'm sure he was not insured by Carry Guard.
Well, luckily no one is insured by Carry Guard because they did not. There was some real heat for that kind of program.
Sure.
Like, if you think about it, like, okay, the narrative is always, why are you taking rights away from law-abiding citizens?
Yeah.
If for people who don't know, there are some real dumb criminals and there are some very smart criminals out there. There are people who are calculated. They use tax. They use
I want to hold
guys,
on to that
lawyers.
Comment right there. Very smart criminals and very dumb criminals.
Yeah.
I want to save that for a little bit.
Okay.
We'll get into that.
If I'm a very intelligent criminal and there is a free $150,000 should I murder someone, and I can invoke my insurance based on the stand your ground law, why wouldn't I get that? So this got immediate heat, and I can't think of why someone at the top of leadership who came up with this program, which, by the way, the guy who was supposed to implement this was one of the fraudsters. So he was the guy who got fired from his former company that he founded because he was mismanaging finances.
He clearly wanted to kill his spouse.
He also was not...
She was breaking and entering. I thought it was a criminal. I had to shoot her 15 times.
He was also not a lawyer providing, like, he was part of the legal counsel group. So, like, why would you put this guy in charge of this program? And the people who were trying to implement the program were like, dude, this doesn't make sense. But, like, why did no one have the ethical consideration of, like, this sounds like we could be potentially providing defense costs for a murderer with the intent to murder and just hiding behind stand your ground. And stand your ground, and I have some stats on stand your ground. It's not I was going to say hilarious. It's not the right word. It's ludicrous. And when you're talking about that video, that dude went in looking for a fight, reminds me of the South Park episode that talked about, it was a World War Zimmerman. and they were blending in World War Z, that terrible zombie flick with Zimmerman. Yeah. And at the end of the show, Cartman draws a red circle around himself, and he sees Token, which is his name's Token because he's the token black guy, and he's like, "Hey, Token, we're cool," because he's been antagonizing Token this whole time, and Token's like, "Fine, I'm reasonable." He's like, "Come on, I don't want to fight. Fist bump. Come on, fist bump me." And you see like Token, and they're making it dramatic, slowly. He gets into that. He crosses the red circle, fist bumps Cartman. Cartman shoots him. End of episode.
Oh my God, South Park's so gnarly sometimes.
Right? Like, think how visceral. Like, how that's pretty edgy to do something like that. But what did that guy just do in that video? He was freaking Cartman.
Yep.
Exactly. He was just asking for it. Yeah. And got it.
So here's some stand your gun around stats that I found.
Stand your ground.
So white on black crime. So when a white person feels like they are in danger and they kill a black person, they are 11 times more justified. Meaning that it is considered a justified killing 11 times more. There's so many videos of this. There's a video of a guy who's arguing with someone. A black man enters. It's a white man arguing with his girlfriend over a parking space or something like that. A black man comes by and shoves him. Assault. Shoves him and then backs away. Like, he was like trying, I don't know what he was trying to do. The guy's on the ground. You see the whole video. He's looking up at the guy, and the guy's like standing back, like he's not going to come after you. The guy pulls out the gun. It's eerie because you're seeing it real time. The guy pulls out the gun, and you can tell that there's a moment of like, dude, what? Dead. Guy dies. Shot. White on black, 11 times more justified. When they control for who started it in Florida, you are likely to lead to white conviction. You're half as likely to lead to a white conviction. So if you're white and you're controlling for who started it, you're 50% less likely to lead to a conviction of a white person. 50% less likely to lead to a white conviction. Doesn't matter who started it.
Okay.
It also has been associated with a 32% increase in firearm homicide in Florida, which means 75% increase in justified homicide. 75% increase in justified homicide. 22 increase in unjustified homicide. So that's when people are invoking stand your ground. 79% could have retreated. 68% of victims are unarmed. So the people who are dying, 68% of the time are unarmed in stand your ground cases. And 60% of those who have killed someone have been arrested at least once, with 13% being arrested for some sort of violent crime in the past.
13% arrested with violent crime in the past.
Yeah. 60% have been arrested at least once. In Florida. This is all Florida.
The unarmed... Florida man does.
Florida,
whatever.
dude.
Yeah. But the unarmed one, though...
that's gross.
Well, I mean, it is and it isn't. Like, if it's stand your ground, right? Hypothetically, it's someone breaking into your home. Hypothetically, right?
No. That's
castle doctrine.
That's the castle doctrine. That's different.
Oh, that's
stand your ground is outside. It's outside, and the idea is that if you perceive imminent bodily harm or life-threatening situation.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So
totally different ball of wax.
I'm gonna check. It's tough to take Florida and compare that and contrast that with the rest of the states, because, for instance, Arizona has the same law. Arizona's crime rate is far lower.
Yeah,
I don't have those numbers. I wasn't prepared for that. But also in Arizona, you can carry, and you don't need a permit.
Florida also has a intense racial history.
It is a very deeply racially divided state.
Yeah. I lived in Pensacola.
I lived in Tampa, and I lived in Boca Raton.
Oh.
So, or not Tampa, St. Petersburg. Close enough. It's just outside of Tampa.
Yeah, Tampa's going to be a little more than Boca Raton.
Boca Raton is a different type of racism.
Yeah.
So
in Pensacola, so I lived in Pensacola, and my buddy lived in this place called Baghdad. You know, the classic town of Florida, Baghdad.
Over by Destin, right?
Yep. No. Destin is 45 minutes east.
Baghdad's on the west side, though, correct?
Yeah.
Destin's on the Panhandle side.
It is. They're all on the Panhandle.
Yeah.
But Destin, I think, was 45 minutes east, like towards Navarre. Same area.
It's close.
Yeah. So Pensacola's further west. Baghdad, and my buddy lived in Baghdad near Milton. And the community Christmas tree was christened with a KKK hood. So I think this is where like the NRA has also ethically got into sticky situations promoting stuff like this. Stand your ground. There's clear issues of some ethical considerations. I have a question for you guys. Let's say there's a father or a parent, and they walk in and find someone sexually assaulting their less than 5-year-old child. And not you, but the father then beats the living shit out of this person assaulting their child to the point of near murder. Do you charge him with intent to murder, battery, assault?
I mean, I don't think so.
You don't think so, right?
No, absolutely not.
Well, this actually happened.
Yep. I know this case.
You know this case in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What do you think happened to the father?
I mean, I hope nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
I hope.
You're absolutely right.
But he probably was released from the jury, though. It probably wasn't the prosecutors throwing that out. It was probably the
judge. The judge dismissed the case.
The judge did dismiss it?
I believe so. I
thought it was the jury who
or maybe maybe no one even filed charges.
I thought the jury.
This is where we need the laptop.
Yeah.
I know. I have another laptop. I'll use it next time.
Okay.
Something like that, though.
So
with that instance, I do believe that prosecutions should bring those cases forward and bring those charges forward. But I believe it's up to society to actually follow through with the charges, to say if he's guilty or not.
So that's actually...
I agree completely.
That's a great point, because you set a precedent. So if you dismiss it, you set a precedent.
Yep.
Why couldn't we do that with sensible gun laws? Like, for example, stand your ground. Let's say stand your ground does not exist in terms of like a policy, but if people are fighting and someone uses lethal force, why couldn't we have done that before rather than invoke a... So you see these ethical like kind of programs that the NRA has involved themselves with.
I don't know if this is an NRA issue as much as it's an issue with the leadership and the judges and the magistrates that are there in place. Because if you look at crime just across the board, without having guns involved, those statistics for minorities are still terribly on the bad side for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that it's an NRA issue to carry that burden the entire way. So as you read those statistics and limited it to Florida, I can't help but say it's still not the NRA's fault. And when I hear these groups that say that the NRA is responsible for thousands of deaths across the states, across the world even, I find that hard to carry that weight for the NRA as well.
I agree with you, because I think that it's the similar, like, who killed the person, the gun or the person?
Yeah, the NRA didn't put the gun in any individual's hands.
Right.
Now, the NRA does support the laws that keeps the guns in individuals' hands, and there's some stretch to those laws. So, for example, I think if you commit a violent crime, you should lose your right to own a gun. That's a common sense, sensible law that I believe should be in place. And that's me saying this as a multiple gun owner.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just how high up the chain you want to go. Like, if you're looking at, what they're lobbying and what they're working towards, then you could kind of make this loose argument that it's causing all these extra deaths, but they're obviously not the only reason a lot of these things pass.
I just think that, the promotion. So, for example, let's say Kerry Guard went into effect. You would start seeing certain judges and cases going wild, right? Where all of a sudden you have 25% of these people are actually murderers who got off with great defense.
Oh, yeah,
they had $150,000.
Oh, this crime happened in this court or this district. Let's make sure that it goes to this judge.
But I think the sticky situation, and, let me know what you guys think about it, this is who came up with carry guard, and why wouldn't you vet that potentiality for abuse? Like, stand your ground. Like, you're trying to protect law-abiding citizens, right? That's what the argument is, and I think we're getting to the point where we start talking about the rhetoric soon. But I want to stay on this like weird ethical gray area. Where's the responsibility lie when you're coming up with these policies or these things that you want to lobby? Where does the responsibility fall for this to be thought through a little bit more?
I mean, personally, like if you feel that you're in like up against an opposing force, then you're just going to constantly try to gain as much ground as you can when you can. So carry guard to me sounds like an attempt of like, hey, let's just see how far we can push this and see how many protections we can put in place for our gun owners in support of them and in support of the Second Amendment. So, so like obviously it had huge backlash, and they kind of saw a line that a lot of society came together and said, whoa, guys, you crossed that line too much. But I think that's essentially what they were founded to do, was to try to do everything in their power to keep firearms in people's hands if they want them.
So my question to you then, Hollis, is how is it okay to keep the scope of your policy that narrow? Because that's a narrow scope, right? You're just looking at, we just want to protect our gun owners, but then you're missing out on the scope of, can someone abuse this program? Who are the type of people that can abuse this program? How is this going to be used against us? Blah, 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 blah. Like, there's so many other complex facets that you could look at.
If one person shits themselves, why should everybody have to wear diapers?
Have you said that ever before? That's hilarious.
I got it. I'm pretty sure I got it when I was in Afghanistan from somebody.
Yeah, okay, so sorry. If someone shits themselves, why should everyone wear diapers? I don't know. Okay.
So one person or a small group of people abuse the rights of the carry law, exploit the situation, but it protects the mass population.
Right. There's the argument, I am the majority. That's something the NRA started saying.
The more common analogy is like, one bad apple spoils the bunch.
One person shits themselves, everybody has to wear diapers.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I think like, the NRA, like they're the extreme. Like they'll push it.
I think we can say that, but psychologically, I think the majority of people the majority human instinct is, if I can openly carry, if I can conceal and carry, if I can invoke a stand your ground law, there's almost this sort of extra layer of protection that I can escalate a situation and recognize that I'll be fine. You yourself have said something that I think is highly responsible, highly conscious of a gun owner. And we were talking about altercations that you've been in while you've carried. And Hollis asked you a really important question. It's like, have you ever just like lifted your shirt and just showed people your gun? And you said, hell no.
Hell no.
And can you just tell us why?
Well, first of all, as a gun owner, you have to be responsible. And I was fortunate to have a family that raised me and taught me gun responsibility at a young age. I think I remember my first time I shot was like maybe around age 8, maybe 9, something like that.
Damn.
So I have a lot more experience than you two, your 2 years, your 3, 4 years. But
sure, just got pumped.
It was one time during that 3 years.
You have to understand, there's going to be a point of no return when you show that you have a weapon. And that point of no return is allowing that individual that you are having that confrontation to know that you have a weapon. And that's something that you cannot do, especially if you're carrying in public and you're fighting over something as stupid as, I'm sure, any of the altercations that I've ever been in, bar a couple in Afghanistan, obviously. But if you're at a bar, one, you can't have a gun under the influence. That's illegal. I mean, that's just reckless. It's endangerment for everybody around you, including yourself. And
That's
that
good.
altercation.
I'm glad that's illegal.
Yeah, that altercation that I got in.
The NRA would probably fight that too, though.
Probably so. The altercation that I got in, I was drinking. I was level-headed enough to not get to the point where I'm going to do something stupid with a gun. And you just have to back away. You have to stay away from it. Yeah. Because it teaches you responsibility.
It's responsibility.
Just on the smaller side of things with gun ownership and gun responsibility. So when you have a gun, you can't leave it around. Somebody could pick it up, right? You don't want to misplace it. It could be lost and it could be used in a crime, and then it could be traced back to you if you have a gun legally and the serial number is registered to you.
Yeah.
You have to know how to properly clean a gun. Just owning a gun just in general teaches you a certain type of discipline and awareness. And these are the types of things that I think is what our original NRA members and what our original Second Amendment founders wanted to instill in American society.
Is what is
a sense of responsibility and awareness and self-control.
Mm-hmm.
And these are things that I think are so important for any gun owner.
And let's not forget some of the origin story of protection from an overbearing government.
Tyrannical government.
Right?
Government, yeah.
That's, I think, to add to your story about and your experiences in having guns and altercations and never having to reference or use them, it's like once, and I said this when you asked why don't you lift your shirt, it's like once you do that, you can't go back.
You can't go back. You open up the door for possibly them having a weapon and using it against you, and now you having to use your weapon.
Yep.
You open it up for, okay, they back down, but now they're going to go and tell authorities that you have a gun. And if you're drinking, you have a gun, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You run into risks
the
that
third
you
one
don't
is
want to take.
They call your bluff.
Yeah, they call you
and
bluff.
you're forced
This is the interesting one.
to use it.
Yeah.
So there's really
that's
three
what I'm
scenarios.
So I'm saying with the first one,
yeah.
If they have a weapon and you have a weapon and they escalate. So
even if they don't have a weapon, they could call your bluff. They could be, you're not going to use that.
Yeah.
And then you try to punch him and he shoots
Some
you and
fucking
you die.
hothead has. We see cases of it, I'm sure. Some of those statistics that you have for Florida, I'm sure that's part of it.
So that's where I'm kind of getting at is I think that, that kind of law, and I mentioned the sexual assault of the child, the disgusting pedophile who deservedly got, I think we all universally are like, dude, that father
did the right thing.
He deserves to express that rage that we all feel when we hear of those types of things. And you know of people who have seen their not seen their children like murdering, but like who are in court after the fact. They couldn't do anything about it, and they just want that opportunity to just do something. It's natural human instinct. And for our laws and judges to protect the father sets an excellent precedent, I think, in an exceptional circumstance. This is not a normal circumstance. This is an exceptional circumstance where someone is assaulting a child.
I really think that we need to take a look at that and see how he actually won the case, because I'm pretty positive the jury tossed it out.
Yeah, I think it was like unanimous. Yeah, it was either like police, judge, jury.
And I think that's how it should be. I don't think it should be police or judge. I think it should be
the jury. The jury.
Yeah.
It's such a great precedent. Yeah. And I think that, why do we need to invoke a stand your ground law when we can trust that our people, if we are the majority, right? That's the claim that the NRA makes. We are the majority that wants to protect First Amendment rights. Why can't we, I'm posing this to you, I don't know the answer. Why can't we trust that if there is a true stand your ground case without the policy, it's like really someone stood their ground, they were afraid, their wife was going to get attacked, they shot, now they're in court. Why can't we trust the process of the courts?
I don't think that you're going to find many true stand your ground cases without conflict for both sides. I think that you're going to find
what do you mean?
I think that you're going to find an argument to be spun on either side, the prosecution or the defense's side, that stand your ground did not apply or it was flipped the other way. So I think that that's hard to prove, is what I'm saying.
I agree. I'm just trying to get some ideals, and I don't mean stand your ground as the laws we have it now, but like an actual scenario where someone stood their ground. Can we get,
I'm a believer in stand your ground. I'll give you an example that comes to my mind. Let's say road rage, right? Let's say that you get into a fender bender and you got a hothead who's coming after you, and they got a baseball bat and they're coming and pounding on your door or pounding on your car, and it gets violent, right? I mean, you're scared. I mean, what would I do if I was in that situation?
Yeah.
Can you lock your doors if they're bashing in your windows? Does that really help? Can you get out if they're circling around, tracing you around the car? Does that really help? Fuck.
Similar scenario. This is a real situation. Someone's trying to pull out of a drive-through, and a less than mentally equipped person is walking their dog, accidentally walks in front of the car, and they didn't see it. They're not the most sound of mind, and they get upset with the driver, and they yell at the driver. Driver pulls out a gun, shoots him.
I think.
Unarmed.
Yeah. Yelling.
Walking the dog.
Yelling. There needs to be some violence and some property damage that's going to come into play for stand your ground to sit for me to be able to advocate for.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what it gets to, that, like, how many could have retreated.
And do you know if stand your ground...
What is it, 79% could have retreated?
Did stand your ground protect that person in that case?
Can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you bring up a good point, but I wonder...
I think it was invoked. I don't know if they won.
Yeah, like I wonder when it really does protect,
right?
And when just the laws that were in place would have just held anyway.
But the idea is whether or not that person won their stand your ground case is that they can invoke it.
Sure.
So there's a distinction between whether or not you win and whether or not you believe you're going to be protected because you feel justified in killing someone. Yeah. So those are two different things.
Right. And I think like a point of the stand your ground law, I just looked it up, is they talk about no duty to retreat. So like, I think in kind of common thought process, it's like, if you're being attacked, it's kind of your obligation. Like, you should really just try to get away. But stand your ground says, no, you have a right to try to battle to the death or whatever.
We're back to dueling.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But like, there's
like, I was always kind of taught to just
mental fitness to that though too. I mean, if you retreat, now are you creating some kind of a mental temperament that you're always going to be living in fear?
I don't know about that, but also you run the risk of that individual escaping and doing that to someone else as well, right?
You
like
also,
if you just run away.
You're also making an assumption that someone is of emotional, mental stability to make the determination that retreating is not for is for pussies. You know what I mean? Like, there's some people who are thinking in that kind of narrative where, like, I don't have to back down to shit.
I'm thinking of like maybe a rape victim who has been raped previously, is walking in the park right now, is being accosted by a male. It hasn't escalated to rape for the second offense, but she's being attacked in some form or fashion, whether her purse is being snatched or something. She's not going to run away. She wants to fight because she's got that PTSD from the previous rape, and she wants to stop this. She feels like she has the strength to stop this.
Right.
She pulls out her pistol from her clutch and she shoots the guy.
Now, do you need stand your ground laws to protect someone like that? Because you already have a situation where a male is attacking a female who's a prior rape victim. I don't know that you need a stand your ground law to make a justification.
I highly doubt that that second male knows that woman has been raped.
It doesn't matter. I don't think it matters. Why are you robbing somebody?
If you're a lawyer, please put in the comments like some actual legal facts to this, because we do not know.
All these are hypothetical.
Yeah, but there's I'm sure like someone knows like why stand your ground exists for this type of thing.
It's not going to be clear cut.
It's not.
It's going to be a perspective for the prosecutors and for the defense to build a case and advocate whoever they're defending.
I just wonder, like, going back to the sexual assault case for the father, would you invoke a beat pedophile ass ground law?
I think we all agree that's okay. I don't think we need to invoke any. Everybody's just like, yeah, that guy really. You should.
There's several laws that come up with that would be a far more severe.
Just really mess that man.
No. But like, so I guess it's not a great.
We all agree.
I was more going. We're with you. I was more going the route of like a suspected rather than proven.
Right.
But it's not a good analogy. Sorry, guys.
No, but I mean that's
yeah. We're all like.
No, but that's kind of yeah.
There's one story I saw. It was a guy, and I think they waited too long, but I don't want to put like in the sense of like judgment. It's a weird thing with families, and I don't have kids. I would rather do what the Texas guy did and just go for it. But there was a family that suspected that this neighbor was molesting or like trying to molest their daughter. I don't know if he like succeeded. I can't remember the details. I saw like some special on it. And the father, and they became great friends with this guy. Like he came over a lot. He was at the house. He was like a family friend. And they set him up and he took the bait and then they caught him. He pinned him down. They called the police. Like, I commend this family for having the restraint of baiting this person, catching them in the act, and then not beating the living shit out of them before the police came. He held the guy down and didn't assault, didn't punch. It was all on camera. I mean, talk about that level of responsibility to a higher
I was just going to ask, right? Because like, let's say they did that without any film or without any recording of this setup. Mm-hmm. Now you've just got a he said, she said situation. And, how are you going to prove that this guy has intent to do something? Yeah. And I think that's kind of core to this stand your ground issue is where, like, how early is too early for you to defend yourself with a high level of aggression?
Everybody's recording everything these days.
Yeah. Like if somebody's coming up to my car,
who went to the statue thing and shot some people.
Like if somebody's coming up to my car and I'm sitting in my car and they have, let's say, a hammer or a baseball bat or something, right? Like I'm pretty disabled. Like I can't do a lot. So like I would just try to drive away. But if driving away wasn't an option, like I don't know what I'd do. Like,
you're boxed in traffic.
Yeah, I'm stuck there. If that guy wants to take a swing through my window, like I'm a goner. So like, is it different for someone who's has limited abilities? Mm-hmm. Where like if I shot the dude like early, before he could do what he was looking like he was going to do, that's where this stuff gets super gray and weird. Very it's gray like, area. How early is too early?
And in the case of like George Zimmerman, which was, I remember that and it's horrific. I think it's so disgusting that a 30-something-year-old is accosting a 16-year-old because at the end of the day, who should have better social skills to de-escalate a situation? Mm-hmm. Not a 16-year-old. Doesn't matter if he's a hoodlum. Doesn't matter if he's a good kid. Doesn't matter if he's a bright person. They're not going to be socially developed to de-escalate a situation. They're going to be like, I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. You have a 30-something-year-old fat individual telling me what to do. I'm scared. And I think that's it's one of those things that, the stand your ground is it's one of those policies similar to carry guard, where the NRA has put themselves front and center of some of these debates. Yeah. And I think that this is part of the reason why they've developed the heat. So aside from the fraud, they've also been legislatively adding heat because they've been kind of playing in this real ethical sticky area. Rhetoric, though.
So, I mean, here, just let me throw one more thing in here on this. But
we can go on as long as we want.
No, but I do want to get back to NRA and the rhetoric and that whole thing. But just looking up the wiki on Stand Your Ground, it's under such a law, people have no duty to retreat before using deadly force in self-defense, so long as they're in a place where they are lawfully present. Stand your ground laws cannot be invoked by someone who is the initial aggressor or who is otherwise engaged in criminal activity. The exact details vary. But here, the alternative, you were kind of asking about this, the alternative to stand your ground is duty to retreat. In states that implement a duty to retreat, even a person who is unlawfully attacked or who is defending someone who is unlawfully attacked may not use deadly force if it is possible to instead avoid danger to complete safety by retreating. So like if you're being attacked,
if you can run away,
it's
duty
to run away to some level of safety. Yeah. So
which
anyways,
is
that's
tough
just pretty interesting.
because I think that I think the duty part for me, and I don't know about you guys, I think that's where it gets a little sticky. If I have a duty to retreat, it's like you're telling me what I'm supposed to do in violence rather than defend myself.
Well, and the other thing let's say that you're in a fight with your neighbor on the side of the road.
We're talking about deadly force too, though, right? Because you can incapacitate somebody.
Oh, they're talking about...
You're only talking about deadly force.
Okay,
deadly force. Like you can incapacitate somebody and not do that final brick to the head to finish them off, Like
you're in a fight with your neighbor. He runs back to his garage, and he goes and gets a baseball bat, and you see him coming. What do?
Run into my house and close the door?
Your duty to retreat. Run into your house.
That's what I do.
You're not going to pull out your gun from your pocket and fucking shoot him because he went in. He went across the street to his garage, and he grabbed a baseball bat, and he started to walk back to you.
If I was a tough guy, I'd grab a bat and go out there and duel.
Yeah, Evan would tell us these stories. So when I was living in Pensacola, Florida, man, there was this guy who was a neighbor of one of our Marine buddies, and they called him Meth Man for a good reason. Meth Man was constantly getting arrested and then right back to his house. Like he was just one of those revolving cycles.
Which is another problem with our justice system.
Which is another problem. He can't legally carry. This guy would do all sorts of crazy shit. One time the Marines are leaving. This dude runs up behind and jumps onto the back of the Jeep and starts saying, "You faggots, you guys want to suck my dick. Stop looking at my dick." And this was like a reoccurring theme, is calling people faggots and then saying something about his dick. And the neighbors hated this guy. This dude pulled out a crossbow during an altercation with a neighbor.
That dude would have a crossbow. Like he wouldn't have a normal weapon.
No, he can't. He can't legally because he's a felon. That's why he can't. That's why he could have the crossbow, but not a gun. But this dude. So this is the type of person who's like a danger to society. But that dude, if that dude came out with a crossbow and he's my neighbor, there is enough background there. It's like, I don't know. Do I shoot you? But I wonder, in terms of lethal force, I wonder if there's a distinction between using a gun to disable someone versus to kill them. I wonder if there's any distinction between that.
I would think there would be.
Because lethal force is considered just shooting someone, right?
Yeah. So that's one of the things that I think that everybody who carries a pistol should be a little bit better trained on. You're trained in concealed carry weapon classes to shoot to kill. Shoot one in the chest, one in the head, double tap, chest head. That's what it is, really.
Gotcha.
But I think that even if they're police, the standard should be if they're not armed with a weapon that can kill you, or they're at a distance, they're far away, that they can't kill you with a weapon. Fuck, if you can hit them in their leg, hit them in their torso, hit them in their shoulders.
Isn't it just really hard to like actually hit someone on a limb or that's kind of why you're trained to shoot.
I mean, your
chest is so much bigger.
Your pistol range is 10 feet, 10 yards, somewhere around there for the average shooter. And I mean, to be able to really shoot somebody moving at that, and you're moving as well,
you're right.
It's an extremely difficult
task.
Ever see but you can point down as opposed to pointing up.
Yeah, because there's the intent, right? Because if you point down, you're not intending to kill them.
Right.
Yeah.
And you do have a chance of hitting their legs.
Yeah.
The next
which it kind of reminds me of that case in Atlanta where the guy assaulted 2 police officers while they were trying to get him in for, a DUI, and then he was running away and they shot him in the back after Honestly, it's like, dude, if you just went like this,
yeah, you could have shot his legs,
or tried to shoot his legs.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is like somebody's running in
a
linear fashion away from you, straight away from you. You don't need to shoot them in their back.
Which we'll talk about that. Like,
that's the next podcast.
Another next podcast. Yeah, freaking shoot him in the legs, man.
So let's jump back into
Rhetoric.
Rhetoric. Let's jump into Rhetoric.
So I've noticed, and I love that you talked about the responsibility thing. I watched the speech by Glenn Beck. I think it was 2015 or 2017 at the NRA convention. I watched a bunch of the speeches of the NRA conventions, and then just some other, public appearances that they've done and what kind of rhetoric that they use. And there's some general themes. Glenn Beck made this wonderful, very articulate argument, and personally, I think Glenn Beck is one of the people who fearmonger and stoke tribalism. The type of person who hates identity politics by playing identity politics, which the NRA does, just in a different way. So they play an identity politics, but just not in the way that the right thinks of it. The right thinks of typically identity politics and gender, sex, ethnicity, but you're getting
NRA's identity politics is they put a scorecard out to say who's the best gun state, the gun mayor, the gun senator, those types of things.
So Glenn Beck made this wonderful argument about how the removal of the Second Amendment is really taking away your responsibility. And I was like, wow, that's well said, because, that's a real great way to stoke pride and ownership is that you take the responsibility of gun ownership seriously, and people are trying to take away your responsibility, essentially trying to neuter you.
Very libertarian, right? It's your personal responsibilities, right?
There is a lot of libertarian ideals in the NRA.
Right? Like, don't tell me what I should and shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, the problem is, and you said this really well, Hollis, a while ago, was that, the libertarian ideals, while they sound great, what happens when a neighbor is burning disgusting material and is causing pollution and then is it their right to do what they want on their property? Or is it not okay that they're affecting because that smoke is going directly into your bedroom? Like, where is that line getting drawn?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like it depends how far you go with the libertarian beliefs, because we all agree on so many rules and regulations that we live within every day, and it makes life pretty pleasant. Like if it was just a free for all and you could build your house however you wanted and whatever, it might not be as great as everybody may think it would be.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that the NRA, so they've come under fire because of fraud, they've come under fire because of these ethical issues and the issues with shootings, and they come out and they speak on behalf of the gun rights groups, and people are demanding gun control, and they come obviously out and say, and so they get unfairly, they get into this position where they look like they're advocating for gun shootings, which I think is a horrible misconception, just because they're trying to say, hey, wait. I think it's fair to say mental health is a problem. Our institutions with jails are a problem. So I want to set those aside for now and just focus on some, in my view, dangerous rhetoric that they use, and they've put some targets on their back. There are a couple themes that they consistently use in every speech. One, they talk about defending against tyrannical governments. And they use very particular language when they're talking about rights. They talk about fighting for your rights. They talk about defending your rights. They talk about protecting your rights. So it's always an antagonistic narrative that they use when it comes to the Second Amendment. In that same vein, a common theme that they will always use in their speeches is about them.
But that's their First Amendment right to be able to do so.
I'm not saying
yeah, of course.
Hey man, it's your First Amendment right to yell fire in a movie theater.
No, he's just talking
right?
Bomb my airplane.
I'm talking about ethical rhetoric, like issues with ethic.
It's
no, I don't think that this is poor decision making on the NRA's part for this particular rhetoric. Case in point, Portland, where people are being snatched up off the road. Now, the NRA didn't do a goddamn thing about it, but it happened, and that's what shouldn't have happened, is the federal police were snatching protesters up off the road indiscriminately, just seeing that they were wearing a mask out in the protest, snatching them up and throwing them in an unmarked van, unmarked officers. That shouldn't happen. That, to me, is tyrannical government.
That's tyrannical government. Okay, so you're making some good points, but I want to color the whole picture because it goes a little bit further, because that's fair, right? Mm. You do need to defend your rights at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do need to defend your First Amendment, or your
Second Amendment.
No, your first
and first.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech.
Protect your rights and fight for your rights.
Right. There's so many amendments that you do need to invoke, exercise, defend, and advocate for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
However, there is a constant theme of fight. We will not back down. We will hold strong. There is a constant theme of telling the constituents to not budge, which does not create flexibility in the dialogue or the conversation about the Second Amendment. So you're kind of already pigeonholing yourself, because you're going to fight, you're going to defend, you won't back down. So you're building this sort of like very antagonistic approach to begin with in the conversation. The other thing that they consistently do is talk about them or they. And what Wayne LaPierre does and what the NRA does very eloquently is they use these vague sort of ways of, we need to defend our rights against them. And this is a direct quote. I don't need to tell you who they are. You already know. Mm-hmm. What does that allow the audience to do?
Imagination goes wild, creates monster. The monster is the Democrats.
Yep. You think, okay, in Portland, the police are being snatched up.
Not the police. Police aren't being snatched up.
No,
the police are snatching
sorry.
up.
Another person thinks it's those goddamn illegal immigrants.
Well, you have to shape...
right? That's who they are. It's the people defending those illegal immigrants. So, where was I? So I was talking about...
You were rambling about something.
Rhetoric. You're on the second topic of rhetoric.
So rhetoric. So they're talking about them and they. So there's a allowing you to imagine an enemy that's against the Constitution, against freedom.
Wait, before we jump into this, actually, can I want to, because like you kind of said the last point on these different, like the language used, and then we just kind of let it go. But like, I was recently listening to another podcast called Nudge that talks about, it's all about consumer purchasing behavior. And they talk about how your messaging has to align with the overall theme of your brand. And so if their brand is like guns and safety, right, then all of that language lines up perfectly with it.
Yes.
You know, it's just kind of like how you would expect to talk about it.
At the same time, I think that recognizing what the consequences of your language is also important. But you're just because you're being successful at peddling your image, that does not make what you're doing right.
It doesn't make it right, but it depends on which side of the fence you're on. If you're in the NRA and you believe it through and through, right, then all of that language lines up with, no, I need to protect this, and we need every
if you're
possible...
a believer, it's their religion.
So I want to get into more of that, because I believe you can have your religion and be able to communicate with people who don't have your religion in a more constructive way. And part of the problem, in my view,
that's not very
rhetoric.
Christian.
Show us the light, Sinan.
Yeah. well, here's the thing, and the reason why I'm also wanting to get on this is because, you know, they consistently use very vague language to invoke a sense of tribalism, meaning. The other theme that they use, so not only do they say they a lot about the enemies that they have, and they also paint the intentions of their enemies to say that they're against the Constitution, they're un-American. They use these very broad strokes to paint the motivations of their people. Really, essentially kind of trying to dehumanize them in a bit, or de-Americanize them.
Yeah, what was that ad? Joe Biden wants to get rid of your police. What did he say?
Yeah.
Defund the police.
Yeah, like, holy moly.
Take your AR-17.
Nobody wants to like get rid of police. I guess some people do.
Some people
I hope
do.
Joe Biden doesn't. I'm pretty sure he doesn't.
Yeah.
Him and Beto O'Rourke.
Jeez.
I mean, Kamala's like the head police officer in a way.
Oh man.
Sorry, we don't need to get
let's
into
not
that.
get on her right now. The other theme.
You know, she kind of looks like she could be your mother.
No.
Oh yeah.
No.
I definitely see that too.
Definitely not.
She's a cool cucumber.
Yeah. You're pissing me off, Scott.
Now we're getting somewhere.
I'm gonna stand my ground.
Oh man. And so they constantly use this theme of like they use the theme of defending against tyrannical government, don't budge, fight. They also use and invoke constantly, we are strong. We have 5 million members. None of this could be possible without you. So they're stoking the sense of responsibility, ideals.
I don't know if saying that we're 5 million strong
They
couldn't
say-
do without you. I don't know if that's stoking responsibility. That's stoking tribalism for sure.
Yeah, I'm saying ownership.
Okay.
Yeah.
I buy it.
Yeah, and that you're part of something big. Like that's not only just ownership. That's also like
Collectiveness.
yeah, collectiveness and social credibility.
Mm,
You know
Yeah. You're not in the wrong because there's 5 million of us.
exactly.
That's where they came out with this. I mean, their media campaigns, what Ackerman has helped them do. We are the majority. Brilliant. And not only that, there's a viral speech of a large black man talking about we are the majority. I mean, talk about great publicity for the NRA trying to get those like diverse demographics in there. Brilliant.
It's so funny how they reach for these. But anyway, go ahead.
However, I will say that video, it's incredibly powerful. We are the majority. I can't remember the guy's name. I think he may have been speaking before Congress or some sort of government, but he was doing an impassioned speech, very articulate. The issue with it, though, is that it goes back to this ethos that they're painting of fight for your rights, stand your ground, don't budge. In other words, be against your enemy, do not back down.
This is very much how police handle situations. Like police,
not all police.
like rarely de-escalate. Like the police, that's kind of their thing. I'm gonna tell.
Don't distract us, Alice. Don't distract us.
I'm gonna tell you
because I've seen
do
enough
this.
police
Get
that
out of the
say,
car.
I don't want to fucking deal with this right now.
Yeah.
I'm giving you a warning. Move along.
We'll
tackle this next week.
I have a video of that.
You want to talk about
ridiculous.
BLM next week?
So they're doing this thing where they're against. Essentially, this guy is evoking the very ethos that he's being told, and he's feeling it. He's owning it, right? And the issue with it, in my view, is that when people, doesn't matter what the values are, it could be values on commercial shopping, it could be values on capitalism, it could be values on socialism. Whenever someone is giving you these ideals to follow in very simplistic language, it is your duty and responsibility to figure out whether or not those people live up to those values, one, and two, are truly being ethical people in their own lives, because you are choosing to invoke some of those ethos when you go out into the public and then communicate with your community members, and you're saying, no, I feel like I'm in the majority and I'm going to stand my ground on my position that you're trying to take away my guns. And then you just get this real lack of being able to have a dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not questioning and being critical of your leaders. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't believe your leaders. I'm not saying you should be suspicious. I'm saying you should be critical. That's your duty. So what do you guys think about that?
What comes to my mind is Jocko. You guys know Jocko Willink, right?
Yeah.
He talks about how he's in a small team.
Dude, the face he makes. Like,
yeah.
He
lives here in San Diego.
No way!
Yeah, he lives in Point Loma, I believe. He owns Victory MMA. Down off of Midway.
Dude,
anyway,
the guy plays his character so well.
Dude, he's badass.
Smart,
badass.
sharp dude.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. He's all around. Anyway.
Yeah.
He talks about how in a small environment, his subordinates could question him, say, "Hey, boss, I think that's a bad idea. Let's not do that. These are the reasons."
Mm-hmm.
And good leadership will pay attention to that.
Bingo.
And the NRA, unfortunately, has shit leadership.
It does.
And it's hurting the cattle, creating what you're saying, you know, this mob mentality of fight, don't fucking back down. All that without being able to have a good conversation, a level-headed conversation with reasonable people sitting at the table, adults sitting at the table, essentially. Yep. I agree. But I do not want to say that they shouldn't use some of that rhetoric. I think some of that is actually appropriate. I go back to, we have to fight to protect our Second Amendment. I think we really do have to fight to protect our Second Amendment.
Do you believe there are people who are really trying to take away your Second Amendment?
Yes.
Who?
There are definitely groups out there that are trying to. I mean, there's advocates that are trying to take away guns just in general in California.
Mm-hmm. And what are they trying to do that? Because we went
to the same thing that the NRA would do on the opposite side. They're lobbying.
Yeah.
They're trying to pass legislation. There was something that was shot down. I think it was a proposition like 63 or something like that in California, where it wanted to limit how many handguns you could buy.
Yes.
You know, total throughout your life.
Throughout your life? I thought there was a bill to reduce the options of guns that you could buy. So, like, at any one time, you could only buy 4 pistols.
But that's what I'm saying. There's advocate groups that are trying to put laws into place that will limit you. And, I mean, there's common sense laws that need to be applied towards gun ownership. And then there's also common sense laws that just need to be thrown out. Like, common sense laws that need to be thrown out.
Yeah. Well, remember,
I'll give you an example of one that I disagree with vehemently. I live here in California. I work for an engineering firm, but I'm registered in Arizona. And I am registered in Arizona because two reasons. One, I want to help Arizona get off of the Trump train. And two, I want to be able to buy guns and buy ammunition however I want, whenever I want. And I don't want to have a background check for ammunition here in California. Not that it makes a difference. I have a clean record, but I don't believe that it's the feds, the state levels, need to know if I buy ammunition.
So explain that to me. So do you have to do a background check every time you buy ammunition?
So yes, in California, yes.
Every time you buy ammunition?
Every time, yes. Every time.
Now, what's the point of that?
To prevent violent criminals from having ammunition, I suppose. I really don't know. Because I really don't know what they can do to say no, that you can't have it. I don't know the extent of the law for that.
Yeah.
But we were together at a gun store and we were talking about it. Yeah, we were talking about this with the sales rep, and he said that buy your pistol. You're going to get your background check run. And then when you come in to get your pistol, your background check is cleared, and pick up as much ammunition as you want at that time. Don't buy ammunition
He
now.
recommended that, yeah.
Because you're going to waste $26 plus $1 for your background check every time you go in afterwards. But $26 for your initial for the year, because I think it's $26 a year for your background check.
It's probably an annual thing.
It's an annual thing. And then it's $1 throughout the year anytime afterwards.
So you get one background check
tax
is good.
revenue.
It's tax revenue.
It's a tax revenue.
But do you think one background check is good for a year though? Like, is that kind of how that works, or is it every time you?
It's every time.
Wow.
So but you're only paying $1.
So I bought a shotgun a little under a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago. I forget. But I bought it in Arizona, right? So my background check went through. Everything's good. I was able to go with the shotgun. Now, they actually held it for, I think, 2 days because my addresses are all over the place. You know, I lived in Florida. I lived in Salt Lake City. I've lived all over the fucking place. I got 16 states and 7 countries under my belt. So now that I've got that shotgun, if I go back into Arizona, buy another weapon, buy another firearm, that background check's going to come back a lot quicker because I'm already in their system. It's going to go through faster, more than likely. But here in California, I can't buy ammunition because I'm not a California resident. So this is a law that California has that bars out-of-state individuals from buying ammunition here. So yes, the background check is a revenue stream for them, but why not let out-of-state purchases happen? That blows my mind. This is the only state in the union that refuses to
I don't know what that reason would be. Gosh, I'm sure there's a bunch of
I think it's just somebody who's ignorant to the laws, who doesn't understand the laws, and doesn't understand the consequences when they wrote the laws. So I don't think that I could be wrong, but any of the mass murders that happened in California with firearms, I don't think that any of those individuals were out-of-state individuals. I mean, they're all California residents.
Maybe one argument could be that someone from Arizona could bring all their firearms across the state lines without being checked, because you just drive. And then they could decide they want to blow a bunch of people up, so then they buy.
But why wouldn't they just buy it in Arizona?
Yeah, why wouldn't you buy in Arizona when the taxes are already cheaper in Arizona anyway?
So you changed your mind when you got here?
There was a huge issue with regulations across states, and in Illinois, in Chicago, which is a horrifically, like the amount of people that die there to gun violence surpassed people who were dying in Iraq.
God, I hate hearing these statistics of Chicago because I used to live in Chicago and I love that city so much.
But you didn't live on the south side of Chicago.
No, I did not. I did not live.
You didn't live on the wrong side
I didn't live
of
on
Chicago.
Side, but I would spend time in the south side.
So they were like, where are all these guns coming from? Indiana. Boom. Indiana. And I wonder if there's some issue there that California saw.
But a lot of times, too, though, those guns aren't registered to individuals from Indiana. I mean, I'm not saying like the perpetrator who's using that gun as a weapon didn't drive to Indiana themselves and buy the gun and then come back.
No. Somebody bought it.
Somebody bought it in Indiana.
A bunch of guns and then brought it.
Somebody bought the gun in Indiana and then did a transfer in Illinois.
Yep.
Now, is that legal or illegal? That's between the two states over there.
Yeah.
So currently...
Well, there's the issue with the gun shows, and gun shows are lumped in with this type of transaction.
In most states, though, you have to be the resident of that state to purchase a firearm. So I think that there's no state in the union where you can go into a dealership, buy a gun in a different state than where you're registered. However, a private sale, that could be a different story. Yeah. And I don't know enough about the laws for that. So, for instance, I bought 2 pistols in Arizona. I did a transfer in Arizona, person to person. It doesn't have to go through an FFL. It's completely legal. We have proof of receipt or proof of purchase. Each party has
like a
copy.
car.
Yeah, exact title exchange. Exactly. That's what it was. That could be an issue though, later on down the road. So, for instance, let's say that one of those pistols is stolen and used in a crime. That serial number is not now registered with me. It's registered with the original purchaser.
I think it's smart.
And then the original purchaser is going to be questioned by the cop once that pistol is recovered.
Which the NRA, I think, oppose a national registry, which at one point they were for.
Yes.
They actually advocated it for back in the 60s. I don't know if you guys knew that.
I didn't know that. But I am opposed to a national registry.
Why?
It goes to the government. I don't want the government to know what arms I have. So similarly to what we saw in Portland, I don't want the government to know that I have weapons.
Okay.
Personally.
So I want to get but that's because you're concerned that the government will come and
I don't trust the government.
Attack you or something.
Don't trust the government.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's get back to this rhetoric thing. So, you mentioned that you think it's okay to be using some of this language, and I think it's fine too. But again, I also believe that the members have a duty to question their leadership, and Wayne LaPierre has shown a very...
He's abused it.
He's abused it. He wants loyal people. He wants certain people. I mean,
he wants to remain in power. He's a mob boss.
He's a mob boss. And if you have the duty to question your leadership, I also think it's your duty to question what your leadership is telling you to do. And I think, unfortunately, they have preyed on people who are looking for that group identity. And when they've done that, they're actually creating a bigger target because this they stuff, they want to take away your freedoms, they want to do. What that's doing is it creates this mob who is a lot more aggressive about their views and stances and more vocal. And so what happens when an object in motion stays in motion unless with an opposing force equal to it, right? To stop it. what that does is it creates antagonism from a real antagonistic. You create an enemy who now wants to fight you. So I think while you don't want to say it's like right or wrong, I guess, but you do want to say that what they're doing is actually creating more divisiveness that hurts their cause in the long run for the short-term gain of gaining momentum amongst members. Rallying.
I think that's an assumption that it's actually hurting their cause long term, because they've used that rhetoric to gain 5 million members and 5 million loyal and aggressive members. So it's working to help them achieve their goal. Maybe now with the climate as it is with BLM and things, maybe things have kind of tipped where people are just more sensitive to all of this. I'm just really surprised that there hasn't been more aggressive pushback against NRA sooner with all of the school shootings we've had. It seems like there's been...
No, they've been getting pushed on quite a bit.
Yeah, they've been pushed on, but I think you gotta look at the time frame for this. Like, when did Sandy Hook happen? When did Columbine happen? How were the Supreme Courts then? Were they conservative? Were they liberal? I really don't know.
Let me put it this way in terms of why I think it hurts them.
Yeah.
And tell me what you think, because you're right, it's an assumption, but let me make an argument for it.
Sure.
I think when you create a narrative of antagonism, it limits your understanding and ability to broaden your perspective. And in doing so, I think it creates a zero-sum game when you're talking about debates, meaning I have to win and you have to lose. And if you're winning, I refuse to lose, so I'm going to pretend like I'm winning.
So I kind of feel like that's a core concept that comes with gun ownership.
Oh.
Like,
what do you mean?
So like if you're using it for self-defense, you're essentially, you want to be that final say. You don't want any. That's why you're getting a gun. You're like, no, there's no going past this line.
Well said.
So I think that's kind of...
But that's one reason why somebody... That's one reason of many.
One reason.
One reason of why somebody...
And what kind of self-defense? We talked about a couple different defenses. I want to protect myself against wild animals. You want to protect yourself from people.
Yeah, this is one reason, right?
I want to protect myself against my girlfriend.
Yeah. No, but I mean, Sinan, what you're hitting on, though, I think is a really important point, because it does show that, like, what they're doing is kind of just adding to this bipolar conversation in our country.
Bingo.
And they're a very loud voice in that. And that is ultimately not good for all of us. So, like, from a core belief, I truly agree that type of language, those types of they statements, that kind of, like, bringing people together with such a firm and aggressive stance, shuts down dialogue, doesn't help anybody make progress towards finding common ground. And where I balance that with is, like, I understand organizations and their goals, right? And so their goals are to do X. They're going to take the best path they can see to that. So I think you make a strong case that maybe it's not the best path because it's too far.
I think that the it gets away from the core thing about, enabling people to exercise their rights. Notice how I use that language. Not defending your rights, but enabling people to exercise their rights.
But that looks different for everybody too. I mean, take for example the girl who walked through the school's campus after she graduated with an assault rifle on her back. She is exercising her rights. The school's policy was, as you are a student, you cannot have a gun on our property. She was no longer a student.
Wow. It's kind of... Then
I don't think students should have guns at schools.
I don't think students should have guns at schools.
Or anyone.
Really. But it's an interesting perspective, though. She was exercising her right. She was no longer bound by the student body's laws.
And then, there's this I mean, to question a little bit of that scenario, getting away from the rhetoric for a bit, it goes back to, can I exercise my rights in a plane and yell out bomb with the beard that I have on September 2002, 9/11? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's exercising my rights. I'll be like, man, this chicken is bomb!
I think...
Your beard makes it worse.
Right? Like, am I exercising my rights, or is that a mis-exercise? Like, you're still exercising your rights,
sure, but
is that the type of exercise you want to enable?
Sure.
Probably not.
Sure. I get it.
You don't want to enable that kind of free speech.
Well, enable or encourage,
a populace
right?
that's 5 million strong, you are representing a pretty significant population.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially since that population isn't predominantly, well, it is predominantly one...
It's predominantly white.
Color.
Yeah.
But there are minorities in that populace as
Very much so.
I have an Asian friend straight from China. He is an immigrant who is an NRA member.
Mm-hmm.
Love the guy. He's a collector.
So so I mentioned that people should be critical of the people telling them what to do and what to believe and blah, 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 and the values. Well, here's one way that you can start noticing how you should be definitely critical about certain things. This is something that the NRA also invokes. So if you just watch some of their videos, they kind of say the same things over and over again. And also with their guest speakers. I'm sure their guest speakers get told, hey, hit on these points. They have to. They're smart.
They probably aren't brought in unless they're willing to.
Absolutely. You're going to the NRA convention, we're like, hey, we're going to have a gun control person come in. I just want you to share your thoughts and so we can have dialogue. No, that's not happening. Yeah. So one of the things that they say
You're thinking about bringing AOC on board?
Oh, man, right? Jeez. One of the things that they say is, what happened to being okay with having a difference of opinion? It used to be that if we had difference opinion, that's fine. You go your way, and I'm going to go my way. What happened to having a difference of opinion?
This is the NRA saying this?
Yes. Where's the paradox in that's the paradox. Hold your ground. Don't budge. Fight. But accept difference. How are you going to accept difference if you're holding your ground?
Are they saying in that comment, what happened to difference of opinion? And then the following sentence, hold your ground! Whatever's the loudest voice is going to be heard the best.
Right?
So
I think that that's one way that you can start being critical is you start noticing that there's paradoxes in the very language that they're communicating to you, and you have to be critical about what they're telling you to do. So what happened to accepting difference? You can't just accept difference and also be inflexible. Right?
I'll buy that.
So I think that's just like some of the rhetoric there. I think that it's pushing the memberships to not be as well informed as they could be when they go and articulate their points. Mm-hmm. So I go back to this the we are the majority speech. I wish I could see a little bit before and a little bit after. Maybe that footage exists, but essentially this guy comes up to the podium, says his rant, and then walks out like crushed it. But that kind of, to me, is a manifestation of tell people where you stand and then leave it, and they can deal with it. Dude, if we're 5 million strong and we're a diverse group, we're going to need to be able to start figuring out how to have these diverse opinions and come to some sort of mutually agreeable solution.
Well, that's taking into consideration that 5 million has the desire to have a difference of opinion. That 5 million is packed together with the same ideals and the same beliefs that the speakers are saying. Now, who's molded who?
Yeah.
That's debatable, because you could say that the speakers have molded that populace, but I'm sure that populace has existed longer than some of those speakers have been speaking.
Yeah, really, the organization's a reflection of a lot of the beliefs of the people.
To your point, though,
I don't think that they need to internally discuss some differences of opinions.
No, that's not what I meant.
But I think that outside the lobbyist perspective, they do, and then some of the policies that they agree on with the outside population,
yes,
that needs to be brought to the 5 million and shown, hey, look, maybe they have some points here.
Bingo. You're 5 million strong. What about the other 200 or 350 million Americans? Can we have a dialogue?
Yeah.
Of a kind. Can we have our group actually engage?
But
and not
when you give an inch, they're going to take a mile.
Who?
And
what do you
who
mean?
they?
What do you
Who
mean?
they?
Yeah.
Who's they?
What do you mean?
You know who?
No,
you
I
know
don't know.
they.
Are you referring they as in the NRA or they as in like?
Honestly, both.
Yeah.
It's perceived as weakness, though. Like opening that conversation up, opening that dialogue up.
Yep.
Is perceived as you're bending to the opposing forces.
So we're three individuals that have similar beliefs, but I think if you were to take Ted Nugent and you were to put him in this room, and you were to take AOC, put her in this room, the five of us, do you think we could all come together with an amicable outcome?
Yes. Yeah, AOC might be a little out there.
If everyone is willing to negotiate in good faith, because at some point someone may not be willing to negotiate in good faith.
Sure, where a handshake means the deal's done. I get it. Good faith for it all. I don't know if we could all come together.
I'm not so sure.
I don't know if I could sit on the same side as Ted Nugent on some of his ideals.
No.
I definitely can't sit on the same side as AOC.
Well, that's why I want to move into this discussion, because I think it's like the final part of it where we actually dig into where we actually disagree, because I don't think we do actually agree on certain things. And
yeah, I'm sure we don't.
So let's go into common sense gun reform, right? That's the
Sure.
hot way it's been talked about.
It's a loose term. There's a lot of laws that go into that.
I forgot
proposals.
Yeah. I forgot about one other ethical, really recent thing that the NRA did in terms of policies they were trying to implement. This was after Sandy Hook. Let's arm teachers.
Right, I remember this.
What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think it's an absolutely horrible idea. I think teachers aren't trained professionals with firearms. I don't think they should be. I don't think you should have guns in classrooms that close. Where are you going to store it? How are you going to ensure that it never gets into the hands of a kid? There's just endless issues with it. It's insane.
Okay.
In my mind.
I'm for it. But I want those questions answered. And I want some assurities.
So let me
I don't think teachers want to have guns.
And that's another thing too. I think
the majority of them don't want to have to do that.
Okay.
Like, I don't want that near my kids.
So maybe
where does the liability fall?
Maybe this is something that we should just discuss, and then we can come into agreement about what, like, if we're going to talk about guns in schools, how does that look like?
Yeah.
This is an argument that the NRA used, and this is how I'm bridging it with the rhetoric. The NRA, after people were like, what the hell, guns in schools? They came out and said, Obama's children at his school has armed guards. Senators and their children and those people who are running your government have armed guards. Why don't your kids deserve the same protection? You shook your head. Why?
I remember this argument.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Why are you shaking your head?
It's not the same.
What? What do you mean? It's my kid. Why doesn't my kid deserve protection?
I think your kids deserve protection, and I think it's up to the teacher if they want to carry. Mm-hmm. And I think it's up to the school district if the school needs to have armed guards.
Okay.
And that's part of the school board, which is reflective of the parents and the citizens.
Let me tell you another reason why it doesn't work.
Yeah,
because your kids aren't high-profile kidnap victims, like potential kidnappers.
So
like kidnap victims.
But there's armed guards that are in public schools.
Yeah, that's apples and oranges. Like arming. So
yeah, that's exactly that's why I'm shaking my head. It's
yeah,
apples and oranges.
Yeah, like arming teachers is one thing. Like it's like somebody who had no interest in firearms in their entire life, and you're like, hey, you should have a gun in case there's some lunatic with an AK who's
and
trying.
My response to that
right,
is
and all of a sudden you have to turn into Bruce Willis. Like, forget it, not gonna happen.
Yeah, my response to that is no. But the person who wants to have a gun and who can show that they can be a responsible gun owner at school, yes.
But however, though, if there was federally mandated like armed guards in all schools, and there was money appropriated from a federal level to provide that,
I don't agree with that either.
I'd be totally for that. I'd be like, hey, yeah, protect the kids, but like, don't make the teachers do it.
Okay. So in order to, and this is the way I see how we could actually come to some agreement and build upon it.
But don't strain the local budget.
Rather than throw out ideas, let's start working on what we all do agree on. And I want to ask a few questions before that. One, wasn't the Parkland shooting, wasn't there an armed guard there that failed to protect the students?
Oh, this was the recent one. Yeah.
That mother,
like what, 2 years ago?
Coward. Yeah.
I mean,
he ran away.
Yeah.
You know that? He ran away.
Yeah, I remember this, and I remember thinking, like, I want to say that he wasn't really well trained. I want to say that he'd never actually been in a situation like that before. And when you're in pressure like that, how are you going to react?
Yeah. So I was like condemning
and you're
him,
making like $12 an hour or something, and you're like, so like in exchange for
Florida,
$12 an hour,
the minimum wage is $8.
So in exchange for your $8 an hour, when there's a lunatic with an AK firing rounds off, you're supposed to run towards them,
and you only have 10 in your clip.
It is kind of asking a lot of an individual, so maybe it's not a realistic solution. Although it sounds good.
So I was condemning him. However, you also have to look at the other side too, is 364 days out of the year, what's happening? Nothing. What happened the year before? Nothing. I've been at this job 6 years. Ain't nobody shooting. I'm not mentally preparing myself, and you don't want to have people like we have Marine buddies, right? We have Navy buddies, we have Air Force buddies. Marines particularly are warriors, right? They're trained warriors. Mm-hmm. What happens when you have an organization who are trained warriors during non-war time? They start eating each other because they have nothing to fight, and they want to fight because that's what they were trained to do. So then you have this catch-22. It's like, what are you going to train an armed guard to fight? And then every single day is the freaking same.
I mean, it's going to be a boring job, right? Like, I mean, it's not a great job. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's of high caliber probably won't really want to do it because it's just repetitive. So maybe it's not a realistic solution.
While some of these shootings were going on and some of the gun debates were happening, I remember some members of the armed guard were standing in front of schools in unity to protect their kids, escorting their kids in some of these military towns. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what cities or towns this was. I want to say it was like Florida or Texas or something. Mm. But the National Guard, in my opinion, doesn't need to be in public schools. I'll just put it to you that way.
What about more
So let's start with a fundamental. Do you believe that schools, any school, high school, elementary, middle school, should have some sort of armed protection on site?
I believe it is their right if they want it.
So if the school or the community wants it. Okay.
I would agree with that. And I also think that shouldn't come out of the local school's budget.
I think that it should come out of the local school's budget if the school wants it.
Okay, so let's put money aside for now, because that's you're adding a layer of complexity that's like shit.
Okay, let's
just focus on the gun one.
I gotcha.
I think it's a legit freaking thing. It's like, well, who's paying for it?
That's I think it's important to understand who's paying for it.
So I agree with you. If actually we agree here, like I think it shouldn't be mandated, but if that school district or even that individual school decides they want an armed guard, they should have it. And I wouldn't even go as macro as a district level, because I think one individual school might know, like, hey, like this place isn't as safe in that scenario, so we should have it.
Where I grew up, we have 3 feeder schools going into my high school, and those 3 feeder schools.
What's that mean, feeder school?
3 middle schools. So middle school in one neighborhood, a middle school for another neighborhood, a middle school for a third. Uh-huh. But it actually was like a conglomerate of neighborhoods for one middle school, a conglomerate of neighborhoods for another school.
Oh, okay.
So districts.
Yeah.
And then all
of it goes into one middle school. So, but my 3 middle schools.
So those 3 middle schools have like one operating budget, but they're separate.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So those 3 middle schools, they each had a difference in poverty level. Yeah. And with that was crime. I remember a kid that I went to high school with. He drove his middle school with. He drove his grandmother's Cadillac to school smoking joints in middle school.
Wow.
Dang.
Dude was hood.
Dude, if you're a kid with fantasies of being the coolest motherfucker on the block, that kid did it.
Dude, he was hilarious too. Funny fucking motherfucker. I mean, he was just always cutting jokes, laughing. Not a negative dude, not a hostile dude.
Yeah,
hilarious.
Unfortunately, not set up well to do well for the rest of your life.
No.
The king of middle school is probably not developing the necessary social skills to do well in
I
life.
remember him coming into ninth grade with me, and I remember having him in one of my classes in ninth grade. And then I remember him coming in and saying, "Fuck, I got my other girl pregnant." And that was like the last time I saw him. Got my other girl pregnant. Last time I saw him.
Oh my god!
Wow. But that's the thing. The scary thing is, if you were your middle school self and someone was like, "Would you trade your future to be the king right now?" You're like,
"Yeah,
yes,
yeah."
Do I get the Cadillac?
I'm in ninth grade going through puberty, or 8th grade.
So
going
my
through puberty.
point is though is 3 different middle schools. Some middle schools may want to have armed guards. The schools come from the same district, the same budget.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so you both agree. I agree too that if a school wants to have some sort of armed protection, not an armed guard, just armed protection, then they can opt into it.
Well, no, but not teachers.
Okay, so then that's the next question. What kind of armed protection are you willing to accept? So, Hollis, because that's why I said armed protection. So what armed protection would you be willing to accept at a school?
I mean, for me, it's like not teachers, because I feel it shouldn't be their responsibility. I don't feel they have any interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think even if a teacher wants to have a firearm, I don't think that's okay, because you're putting it too close to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's too many opportunities for that to fall into the hands of a kid and have some casualties there.
So you're bringing up an important point with the teacher thing that I don't think was talked about. And that is that every single day that teacher has a firearm, it is an opportunity for something to go wrong with a child finding the firearm and doing something with the firearm, right? I mean, that's you literally have, if you're in school 240 weeks out of the year, I don't know how many weeks out of the year, every single day there's the threat of something could happen. So you literally have to be on point.
The teacher snaps and kills the kids.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, totally.
That would be horrible.
I mean, even if you lock it in a safe in the room, there's a chance that there's some kid who's trying to figure out how to get that thing open, and you never know.
Bingo. Yeah, imagine also like, "Henry, sit down." The shirt, and there's the gun, right? But okay, so you're saying no teachers, point blank, even if they want them.
Yeah.
So what kind of arm protection would you be willing to accept?
I mean, above that, it's kind of whatever. Like, if you want private security like you'd have at a mall, sure. If you want somebody who's way more military, like an ex-Marine who's carrying heavier weaponry, I would prefer not like when you go to Mexico and you got guys with AKs and stuff, like, or I don't know what they are, but preferably AR-15s or whatever,
assault rifle.
Yeah, preferably not carrying that around the school, but if that's what the school wanted, I would think that's fine. So for me, so long as
police
officer, so long as the teachers aren't the ones with the burden or the responsibility, whatever kind of level above that you want is, I think, fair game.
What about school administration staff? So non-teachers, but like I work in the office.
If that's the case, then there would have to be like extensive training for it, because essentially it's the same issue I have with the teachers.
Okay. Scott.
Yes.
Armed protection.
Yes.
Any kind. National Guard.
No.
Non-federal resources.
But teachers?
Resources. Local community sponsored, including teachers, including administration.
Okay.
Even if they're storing the weapon in the classroom.
Agreed upon by the community.
So how? Okay, so let's dig into the teacher thing, because Hollis doesn't agree that teachers, and I'm not really. I'm on the fence. Like, I'm open to things, but I have some very strong concerns that would need to be
look
addressed.
at small towns like maybe Abilene, Texas.
Okay.
Maybe not such a small town. Maybe let's go even smaller than that. Maybe something like, oh man, I don't know.
50,000.
Some of these places, 50,000.
Sure, whatever.
50,000 populace, 20,000 populace. Yeah, I think that there should be a teacher if they want to, and if the community will allow it, to be able to carry a pistol in class to protect the students.
Okay, so then how would you envision the danger of a kid?
Oh, my mind can get creative on how many possibilities danger could arise, but it's not me who's going to decide that. It's the community. So it's up to the community to decide the risks, run through the scenarios, weigh the pros and cons, and determine. And if it comes up that the community is willing to accept those risks and understand those limitations to how the protection actually is applied, let the community roll with it.
Okay, you're part of that community. You have children in there. I know you'll never have children, but it's a legit question. Like, let's say you have a vested interest in the protection or non-protection of the school.
Let me put it to you this way. Let's say I'm the teacher. I want to be able to carry a pistol.
And let's say you have students in there who want your pistol because maybe you don't live in such a great area and there's just some shithead kids.
Sure.
Then what?
I still want my pistol. Doesn't mean they're going to get my pistol.
Is it locked in a safe?
Yeah, how are you keeping it?
Yeah, where is it? On your body?
Well, kids don't need to know where it's at, right?
No.
First and foremost.
That's fair.
First and foremost. So kids don't even need to know that.
Okay, kids, I'm putting the pistol in my drawer.
So that's important to
I
know.
am going to turn my back. It is not locked.
Do not touch the gun
out of that door
in this
for
drawer.
30 minutes. I will be back, and I'm not going to look in my drawer for my pistol because I know it will be there.
I trust all of you.
I trust all of you.
That's
unconditionally.
That's important. So, okay.
Yeah.
So teachers.
Yeah, so that's the first.
Teachers, you're saying, can have guns, but one requirement is, or non-requirement, that the location of the weapon is not known.
Not known by the student body.
Or
I do believe that the administration should know where that pistol is.
Okay.
Because if something happens, so for instance, if something happens to the teacher, he has a heart attack, that pistol has to be removed from the premises completely.
Okay.
So administration needs to know where it's at. I haven't really thought about this to much extent, but just off of the whim, I'm going to say that I think that it should be in a lockbox. I think that it should be in condition 3, which means that there's no bullet in the chamber. There's no bullet in the fucking gun at all. It's separate.
And then the ammo is locked somewhere else?
The ammo is separate. Okay. So I think that it should not be in condition 1 status, which is a bullet is actually in the chamber ready to shoot.
So you're saying if we're going to allow teachers to carry guns in the classroom, the students are not going to know where the gun is located. The gun is going to be stored away from its ammo and unloaded. So there's essentially 2 separate locations that the gun and ammos could be stored in.
I don't know if I would go as far as to say that the ammo should be separate locations.
Okay.
You could have it together, just not
in place
intact,
and loaded.
Intact and loaded in condition 1.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm saying is, to an untrained student who's looking to cause bodily harm, they would first have to know how to use the weapon in order to get it to fire.
Okay.
So, they would first need to know where the weapon was, how to get to the weapon, get to it in a timely manner before it being stopped, and then also how to put it together to use it.
Okay. And then the location of the gun, does it stay static?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think about that, Hollis?
I mean, like, I feel the same way because even all these precautions, right, they sound good. But unless there's inspections to ensure that it's stored in that way, there's always an opportunity that, operator error.
Didn't say that there shouldn't be, and I didn't say that there also shouldn't be training for the teacher to have.
Sure, I mean, absolutely.
So those safety measures should be taken into consideration.
Yeah, of course. I just think there's always going to be, like, basically you're taking an environment that right now has one weapon per school, essentially, maybe in a guard, and then you're saying, okay, there's 48 classrooms. Let's take that small location full of kids and let's now put 48 guns in there. I just think by sheer numbers, you're going to statistically see unintended injuries and deaths go through the roof. That's like my theory. I totally respect and understand, like, if a community gets together and decides that's what they want to do, I can understand why a community want to make that choice. But I think, to me, it's, in my mind, I just, if a larger portion of society decided, no, we're just going to not make that an option, kind of like seatbelts, I'm okay with that, because I just think seatbelts, less people die with seatbelts. We all agree on it. We're okay with it.
I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
Well, it's not about seatbelts.
But seatbelts is a good example of a safety precaution we all agree on.
I don't agree with victimless crimes.
I think a safety precaution of keeping guns outside of classrooms is a good safety precaution.
Okay, so back to the gun thing. You mentioned inspections to verify that the gun is being kept in proper order. Would you agree with an inspection on a gun that you have as a teacher?
Again, if the community wants it, no problem.
Now, he mentioned 48 classroom, 48 guns. Do you think every classroom should be equipped with a gun?
If the community wants it, yes.
Okay. Let's say this community wants it. Hollis doesn't want every single classroom to have a gun, or a part of the community doesn't. Would you compromise on how many classrooms? And would you do a random assortment? Would you do a random, some teachers get guns and some teachers don't?
Is the community 50,000 and Hollis is the only individual?
Let's say Hollis represents
is the community
a substantial...
So the community is 51,000 pro and 49,000 no?
Sure.
51 wins.
So that's like stand your ground. Can you compromise? Because 49 is a substantial number. 49 is a big number.
Do they want to compromise? I am willing to compromise. I am in the chair where I'm willing to compromise.
Okay, so you don't have to have 48 guns in
I don't have
classrooms.
to. No, I don't have to have any guns in any classrooms. Yeah, but I'm saying that if the community wants it, then the community should get it.
The community should have the ability to do that.
Now, you would want
in my perfect world, if I was a teacher, I would want the gun in my hip. Mm-hmm. That is me. That is my decision. Mm-hmm. But would I want you to have a gun in your hip? Would I want you to have a gun in your hip? I don't think either of you should.
Yeah, I don't think I should.
I don't think either of you should.
I'm not trained.
There's probably people out there that think that I shouldn't.
I don't know to be offended or just glad.
But this is my perfect world.
I think you're right. I probably shouldn't carry a gun with me everywhere. It probably wouldn't be a good idea.
You just need training.
I could do it, but I'd rather.
I don't think that you just need training and education. I think that you also have to take into consideration and be able to live with the risks that come associated with it.
So then why don't, just for fun's sake, why don't you think I should carry a gun? Or Hollis?
I don't think that you understand the gravity of the consequences. Or
what? He doesn't understand the gravity so much he doesn't want a gun near him. like he totally gets the gravity.
And I don't think that you have the training for it.
Okay, so tell me about the gravity of the consequences.
Okay, you mentioned, have you ever lifted your shirt in an altercation, or would you? Just that question alone is not understanding the gravity of the consequences of that.
Wait, no, I didn't.
Well, that was my question.
That was his question.
Yeah, that was my question.
I would never do that.
But
I would always.
But it was educational for you.
De-escalate.
Was it an educational moment for you?
No.
My response?
No.
Okay. Then I stand corrected. Maybe you do understand the consequences better than I thought.
100%. I think I was the one that said, Hollis, no, once you do that, you can't go back.
Well, that's why I was asking, because I was like, this story could get pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And also, I'm curious. I don't own a gun. I don't use guns. I have no idea. So, if someone's in that scenario, I don't know what they're going to do.
No.
But
I am going to purchase a gun. I will not carry it with me unless I'm going out backpacking or out into the wilderness. That is,
the south side of El Cajon.
Yeah, right. In my view, I personally, as a personal, I just don't see a need to carry it in a city or in any sort of town situation. In my view, I think I'm equipped enough with communication skills and don't live in a hostile area where I could de-escalate.
I've given him a pistol camping with him. Like, here you go. You know how to use it? Here, let me show you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to sleep.
That sounds pretty...
I was in his tent just like caressing his hair with the gun, just like, if only. Okay, so back to the
what
school.
hair? You just rubbing it on his head?
It was just his head. It was just that's what made it so good. I could feel the edge of the gun on his head as if it was an extension of my finger, and I just felt on. You know?
I know the feeling. Yeah.
And then he laid down head to head like this and just looked over at me.
It was. I've never felt so thrilled. Back to the schools. So you would be willing to potentially accept that a school has teachers with guns, assuming that there's an inspection. Would you feel more comfortable if not all classrooms had guns and that there was certain educational requirements for these teachers to meet?
Look, I'm a team player, okay? Mm-hmm. So if society decides, like, hey, we want teachers to have guns, and we put some regulations around how they do it, sure. I just think it's a horrible idea, and it's only going to last a little while because we're going to be like, holy crap, that didn't work out. Okay.
So on the flip side of things, there are laws that society has deemed to be fit to be applied now in present day that I don't agree with.
Sure.
Ammunition, gun sales in California, the way that they handle it. You don't agree with it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a team player with it if I don't have to be.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have to be, but I don't want to be. And I'm not going to vote for it if the opportunity presents itself. I'm going to vote the other way.
And that's what the NRA is for, is to fight for those, right? Because as an individual, we don't have much strength at all. But if we combine our values into one set and we gain 5 million
much stronger
subscribers.
But so humans are much more effective collaboratively than individually. That's just how we are. Although individualism is extremely important. At the same time, creative solutions is what makes collaborative groups so well equipped. And I think that when you have a very homogenous group, you run the risk of not being very creative. That's the problem with homogenous groups. That's why people have groupthink. That's why corporate boards start not smelling their own farts, and then they start embezzling from the company. They start doing these bad practices because it's an echo chamber. So that's what I think is they're running a risk of. But we've covered that. So Hollis, I don't want you to be a team player. I want you to be firm with your beliefs right now, because this is assuming that this is a gun debate. You two have very different stances. In my view, I don't think teachers should have guns because of similar things that what you're saying. However, I'm willing to say, if you're willing to put some sort of inspection and training and process in there, and then you made an important point that kids don't know where the gun is. In fact, a very few select group of people, not even all teachers need to know where the guns are. If they're not part of the special group that knows where the guns are, I'd be willing to actually concede to that. Yeah. And
I think administration and the teacher.
So I wouldn't. I mean, I just think it's straight up a really terrible idea. Like, I think no amount of training. And then if it's optional where the teacher can opt in or out, I think that would be a better system. But
I 100% would leave that to the teacher.
Yeah.
First of all, I would never mandate that you have to carry a gun.
Yeah.
So
I would never mandate that unless it was wartime.
What if we imposed a cap that only 5% of teachers could carry a gun?
Again, this is community decision though, and if the community
agrees, saying if the community said we can do it, but federally there's a 5% limit.
So the community wants 100%, but the Fed only wants 5 or allows 5%.
Then you'll see a 5% increase in unwanted gun accidents.
I think it's going to depend on the state.
I think that is
instead of 100%.
Well, I think that's a huge assumption.
I think it's going to be contingent on how the governor is going to react. I mean, look at what California.
But there's a ton of data that backs it up.
What?
Well, if there's a house and if there's a gun in a home, the chances of there being a gun-related accident are like 1,000. I don't know the real numbers, but like 1,000 times a home without it.
So
it's just a fact.
Just like buying a lottery ticket. You will never win the lotto unless you buy a lottery ticket. Your chances increase exponentially.
Right. So let's talk about putting a gun in a classroom. And now there wasn't a scenario where it could happen. And now there is.
So there's a distinct difference, though, when you systematically use protocols and procedures to protect the access to the gun. Because if there's a gun in a home, people know there's a gun in the home. In this instance, we're talking about a school, specifically a classroom, where students may not even know if there's the gun in the classroom. They know that guns exist in the school, but they don't know which classrooms, which teachers, and where the gun is located. So even if they find out Mr. Anderson is one of the teachers that has a gun, they don't know where Mr. Anderson's keeping the gun. They don't even know if it's in the same classroom with Mr. Anderson. It could be in another classroom that Mr. Anderson is.
Does this change it for you? Because it really doesn't change it for me much.
I think you can mix up these variables all over the place, but the two things that are being pointed out here is I'm going to probably say yes to something that's going to say teachers can have them. You're probably going to say no on the ballot if the ballot was put in front of you. And same thing with you. It just matters what kind of variables they are for you to be able to compromise.
I just think the variable of it's just a bad idea is not enough. It does not create enough dialogue because it's not. We have to compromise. We have to be team players.
But hang on. So let's actually explore this for a second.
Actually, I thought we were.
Well, I'm sorry, but so like you're saying,
I'm ready to move on to the next subject.
You're saying the dialogue isn't enough, and I'm saying there have been countless studies, facts around when you bring guns into a proximity, how many injuries you have in relation to that. Like the data's there. There's no disputing it. It's facts. I can't rattle off exactly what those are, but I know it exists and I know it's strong. So it's a safety thing. And like, there's a reason why we're not arming teachers right now. It's because it's kind of obvious that data clearly correlates to if you did arm teachers, you would have more deaths through accidents than you would through school shootings and the ones that they stopped.
So I would challenge you to find those statistics, find at least one study that has it, and we can walk through the methodology of that study to see if it's an actual valid study. Because this is one thing that comes out with these statistics and studies. And, I read off some statistics about the gun laws, but I didn't look in the methodology, which is a huge thing for me, is looking into the methodology of how you determine your statistics, because the methodology is everything, right? You can look at a set of data and two people can come to different conclusions. There's this great argument. I think it was John Haidt who had this argument. I'm sure it's a reoccurring argument, but you have a study that shows correlation between coffee and breast cancer in women, and you give it to a population and say, tell me what you think about this study. And one group is critical of the methods, the other one is supportive of the methods, and the group is critical of the methods are female coffee drinkers, right? Like, you can look into these things, but unless you know how to read methodology and use a scientific kind of backing, it's very difficult to invoke scientific studies without really looking into the methodology of these things.
I agree completely. I mean, you can spin numbers to say lots of different things, but there are times where the overwhelming majority of data points a certain direction and you got to listen to it.
So I would challenge you to look into those. And this is part of the
camera again.
God damn.
That's it. That's all we got.
Damn, we were wrapping up and I thought this was
Well, let's just keep going. We're still recording audio.
This is
I gotta say, I misspoke to condition 3. It's actually condition 4 of the magazine out of the weapon.
Okay, sure. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, that's like...
I think we should just cut it there.
Well, we should probably end something.
Yeah.
And that's Social Thorns. Episode 5? 6?
I think around 5.
Thanks for listening.
I think we should come back to this at some point.
This was really good. Thanks for doing all that research.
There's so much shit that we can talk about, but I think that when you put the ballot in front of somebody, that's what we gotta say when we want a decision. Ballot's in front of you.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's like a cool, like,
that's
social
a subtle
points
way to insert education for your local politics too. Ballot's in front of you. Think about it.
There's like a catchphrase. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I also think this is also, if we start hitting these sort of national topics, it gives us a platform to reach out to local San Diegans that care about this stuff, and we bring them on.
Sure.
So I think what you said about the oh man, I'm not sure if I should do it. I'm like, no, it's good. This is good subject matter.
Well, and you know how I picked it. So like Google Trends is a source you can find on what's the most searched things on a time period. So I just looked that day, what's the most searched thing, and I went down to the first topic that I thought we would give a shit about. The first one was like, what's that dipshit on YouTube that John?
Oh, dude, he always trending.
Luke guy, whatever his name
I don't know.
is.
I don't know anything about him. I just know that people seem to hate
Paul something.
It's like 2 first names.
Paul Luke, maybe something like that. But it wasn't even him. It was his brother or something. But you know, like I had to get down like past like him.
I want to say Paul Ryan, but I think that's the Speaker of the House or former Speaker.
Fuck that dude.
Yeah, I had to get down and hit past him and Selena Gomez to like.
Fuck that
but so that's why I picked it, was just because I knew it was topical. I knew it had great search volume, and I knew it kind of relate to what we've got. So,
here's something really interesting though to think about. California is the most strict with gun laws in the union.
That's known.
But also the 44th highest in murder by guns.
Are you serious?
Is that per
44th.
population?
There's only 6 states that are higher than California. And those are, actually there's only 6 places. DC, District of Columbia.
Dude.
Louisiana.
How did this not come
Missouri, Maryland, South Carolina, and unfortunately Michigan.
Dude, what's scary about that is Washington, D.C.
isn't even a fucking state.
Tiny.
Yeah, isn't even a fucking state.
All those places are
here's the murder rate
minuscule.
by firearm. Here's the murder rate by firearm per 100,000 people.
Oh, per 100,000 people.
100,000 people. 16.5 in DC. Louisiana is 7.7 coming in number 2.
Wait, so 100,000 people.
16.5
are murdered
by guns.
By guns.
That's not every year, is it?
This is.
I bet it's every year.
That's a lot. Yeah, this is annual average. I think it was like 2017. I pulled this down.
Okay.
That's old news, dude. It's changed so much.
Louisiana 7.7. Yeah, that's the thing. So much of what I was trying to find was old statistics. There's nothing that's new, and there's nothing that isn't extremely biased.
A lot of them, yeah, dude.
Like extremely biased.
So hard to find.
Like arbitrary numbers that were pulled out. Like 80% of all crimes are stopped because of firearms. Like, how do you fucking quantify that?
Yeah.
How do you quantify that?
Make believe stuff.
78% of criminals would not have committed the crime had they known there was a gun in the house.
Right.
How do you know that?
We did a survey.
Yeah.
So we did a flash study. If you knew there was a gun in the house, would you have robbed it? Strongly agree to strongly disagree.
The 4 times that I was picked up, they never once asked me that question.
Right. Strongly disagree or agree.
Yeah. And then I did a little timeline of California's gun laws.
Wait. Louisiana's second, 7.75.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
Yeah. Missouri 5.5, Maryland 5.1, South Carolina 4.5, Michigan 4.1, and California was 4.0.
So it dropped in the list because it started controlling for population.
Population was 100,000. So crime, murder,
those are the highest.
But they also
California. So your lowest
also has 100,000 more often.
The 5 lowest were Vermont, New Hampshire, Hawaii, North Dakota, and Iowa.
I'm just glad Texas isn't on that list.
What I was trying to do with that though is I was trying to find out, like, is this predominantly red that's more murderous? Is this predominantly blue that's more murderous?
Yeah.
And it wasn't clear cut.
No.
So
I don't think it's ever going to be clear cut.